Talk about Parks and Recreation System Development Charges, or SDCs, methodology. I'd like to call in Jeff Hunsaker, to our Public Works Director, to present to us tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So here to talk about Park SDC methodology tonight. This was one of your council goals, to update the methodology to account for commercial and industrial, and to be able to do that, you have to update the whole methodology. So I'm going to kind of, the last time this was talked about at the council was back in July of 24. So it's been a while. So this is a bit of a refresher, and also a chance to for you all to ask questions, have discussion amongst yourself, and see what we need to bring forward to you as staff to keep this moving forward. Okay, there it goes. So yes, the purpose tonight, we need a new Park SDC methodology that has been triggered by the adoption of the PROS plan that occurred, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan. Tonight I'm going to try to focus on what's changed between the existing current SDC and the new proposed one, what it funds, and then what are the developer cost impacts. That was some of the questions that came up when this was discussed last with council. And ultimately, my goal is just to have a transparent financial understanding for you all to be able to make a policy decision on how we move forward. So the biggest reason to update the methodology, the current one we have dates all the way back to 1998. So it's pretty outdated now. All the growth assumptions that were in that old SDC have come and gone. So we're past the horizon from that plan and that SDC methodology. The current methodology does not charge commercial or industrial developments. They don't pay an SDC fee. And that is one of the things that is different in the new one. The big thing is obviously the current SDC doesn't align with the adopted PROS plan that the council adopted back in 2024. So that is something that needs to get rectified. And the current SDC doesn't ensure that growth pays for its proportional share of capacity expansion. So when development happens, currently they're not paying their share. So that old methodology, it was level of service driven, but a big part of it was, even at the time, it was decided to do only a 50% cost recovery. Even though it did not change the projects that were in the 1998 plan. So we've only been collecting half the dollars needed over time, and there was never an additional funding source that was ever determined to account for those, for that lost revenue from only recovering 50%. So that has hampered the ability to develop the parks system since 1998. The new one is, again, driven by the capital projects that are within the plan that was adopted, and it looks at equivalent population modeling and has a better cost transparency as part of it, if you read the methodology. So the growth assumptions that were in the plan, and this is all what determines how we do the methodology. The first is it assumes between 2022, 2041, there's a little under 13,000 new residents, but it also looks at employment growth. So the new methodology says that an employee uses the same amount of the park system as 1/3 of a full-time resident. So for example, I don't live here in town, but I use City Park to take some nice walks on my lunches in the summer. So that obviously as a city employee, I'm not paying an SDC, but that's the kind of the idea is we're trying to capture those employees that are coming into town using the park system, but aren't part of the residents. So if you take that 6583 number that's up there, 1/3 of that, and then add it to the 12,832, you come up with an equivalent population growth of about 15,000 people in that 20-year horizon. And another big decision that was made policy-wise when they did the PROS plan was to maintain the current service level standard, which is currently 8.5 acres of parks for every 1,000 of equivalent population. So the projects that came out of the plan assume that you're going to, for every 1,000 equivalent population, have an additional 8.5 acres of parks. So I've kind of built in points for questions and discussion with the council tonight, and so we don't try to cover a whole bunch of information, then try to refer back to a lot of stuff. So I'm going to stop here and ask if there's any questions on those assumptions that were used in the methodology.
Councilor Tukalski.
Yeah, thank you. Could you go back just one slide, please?
Yes.
So you have the equivalent population growth of 15,000. So you've taken 12 plus 6.5, essentially. How do you know that the people that have the employment growth don't also live here? And are they being double counted?
I don't believe, I can look into that. I can't remember if it's being double counted or not. I don't believe so, but.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
I'm sorry, your clarification confused me. I thought you said that the employment growth was, the employment numbers were 1/3 of the residential numbers. That's the assumption.
No, an employee has the same impact to the park system as 1/3 of a full-time resident.
Right, so they're not, oh, I see. So he's saying they're employees and they live here.
As some of those 6,500 jobs, assuming a new full-time resident.
Got it.
And I'd have to go back and read the methodology to see if it double counted or not, but I'll get that information. Any other questions?
Councilor Chenoweth.
Yeah, how do you, given an employee would be taking a lunch break and 2 20-minute breaks under a typical 8-hour working schedule, how does that equivalent, how did you come to 1/3 as your number?
Well, I didn't come to 1/3 personally. The person that we hired to do the SEC methodology came to 1/3, and they based that off of numbers that came from other plans that have been developed over time and the calculations that come from it.
That seems like a really high percentage to me, a ratio, when you consider you know, that those employees would need to be going from their job to a park, assuming there's a park within that distance that would make that work. And considering that they're probably not going to be going to our parks if they're coming from out of the area on a Saturday and a Sunday, that just makes, or whatever off days they have, that just doesn't make statistical sense to me. So I just thought I'd bring that to your attention.
Okay.
Councilor Cunningham.
I think I'd push back a little bit on that one because of the time that I spend at Joe Dancer. You see constant Mac Water and Light people using the park as well as other people around. And then just because they don't live here doesn't mean that they wouldn't be taking advantage of their kids playing in, I assume, our regional soccer and baseball and basketball and all that type of thing. So I think a lot of them do come into this town to be a part of the sports on the weekends.
Councilor Geary.
Yeah, I also see that less as a clock function of 1/3 of their 8-hour day in a park as a way to ensure that we can, on a agreed upon larger metric that's used in McMinnville, capture businesses and create a way for McMinnville to be able to provide a high level of high quality of life and help those businesses now or future attract those people that would like this type of thing in an area they work in and potentially an area they live in and bring their family to. So whether it's, you know, clocking their 1/3 of an 8-hour shift in the parks, it's a way to capture from businesses, a way to develop our parks for those businesses.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Okay. So the capital program that was in the PROS plan that this methodology supports, it assumes there's 60 total parks in that CIP, and 35 of those parks include SDC eligible capacity projects. So to be SDC eligible by Oregon state law, we have to be increasing capacity. So building a new park is increasing the capacity of your existing park system. Building a new playground in an existing park is increasing capacity. Replacing something, though, or maintaining it is not SDC eligible because you're not increasing the capacity as part of that. So not every park that's in the CIP list is going to be SDC eligible, or every project. Oh. Okay, a little better.
So if we have park property and we want to build a new building on that park property, that would be qualify for SDC funding?
Yes, because you're increasing a type of capacity for parks.
Counselor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. Does the packet, I'm sorry, I don't recall seeing it, does the packet have the listing of the individual parks that are SDC eligible versus not?
It is in the
Pros plan?
pros plan. It's also in the appendices of the pros plan that it specifies if it's SDC eligible. So the big part of the capacity increase is new parks. There's, like we talked about, if you build a new skate ramp or you build a new playground, that could be SDC eligible. But the main cost driver of that number, the close to 100 million, is the new parks. So this is the,
Sorry, let me just clarify the 60 total parks in the CIP, are those all existing 60 parks or include parks that we are?
I actually think that might be 60 park projects. Because I don't think we have 60 parks.
Mr. Cool over here, can you tell me?
Oh, me?
Pretty sure that's,
I could go through the list real quick and count them, but I guess you also have to think about, I'm assuming too that they break up the BPA into multiple elements, so you're kind of counting a lot of those. And then they do identify, because property acquisition for future parks is in that list. Those future parks we've identified in some of those new development areas would go in there as well.
I guess that's
So-
the number, that's really the number I'm trying to determine is,
yeah, so the amount of new parks, they're actually shown here. You can kind of see, like if you look in the southwest area, you see where it says Southwest Community Park, Southwest Neighborhood Park. It's all in the pros plan where all the new ones are, but these new neighborhood parks and then the new community park in Southwest are the big drivers for costs.
and those are not paid for by the developers.
So it can be paid, I get into it a little bit later, but essentially, since they're SDC eligible, if a developer built it, they would get SDC credits. And so the amount of SDCs they pay for the homes moving forward, then you would subtract the money that they already put into developing a park. So if they gave the city land for, say, 6 acres for a neighborhood park, we would take the value of that land, say that they get SDC credits for that amount, and charge that much less SDCs on their development.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So yeah, we can't charge them and take. Then you run into constitutional law issues with takings. So we can only, we have to give them just compensation for what we take.
Okay.
So if it breaks out, there's about 33 million for neighborhood parks, 26 million for a new community park, 20 million for proposed greenway developments. So just the new park facilities is about 80 million of that 93 million I was talking about earlier of SDC eligible. So that's the majority of where that large number comes from. So what it does not include, like I mentioned before, it does not include renovation and replacement projects. Those aren't SDC eligible by Oregon law. Same thing with maintenance improvement work. Our operation and maintenance, we can't use SDC dollars to fund staff. That's not allowed. And the decision was made to not include the large bond projects of the rec center and the aquatic center replacements in the SDCs. So the decision was to move forward with those as bond projects and not be accounted for in the SDCs. So if they're a like-for-like replacement, you're not increasing capacity, they wouldn't be SDC eligible. Theoretically, if you're increasing capacity, so you're building more swim lanes, it could be SDC eligible, but the choice was made at the time to not include those in the SDC calculation.
Okay.
So is there any additional questions on projects that are in the CIP that's listed? And I might not have all the answers because I wasn't here to do the plan, but I'll definitely come back with any information.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Can you go back to the map picture? When I'm looking at this map, and I'm not keeping the mic close to me, I'm seeing some parks kind of in the dead center where existing housing is already there. Am I missing something, or refresh my memory on these?
Again, I wasn't here for it, but essentially, when the pros plan took into account our service level for all parts of town, there was 2 areas that were shown as being kind of park deserts. So they weren't within walking distance of those existing homes or anything like that. And those 2 areas were identified as needing neighborhood parks. Now, yes, those areas are developed now, and the exact where they would go or whatever, that hasn't been decided, but collecting the money for those allows the city to have the opportunity to start going down the path of how can we get neighborhood parks in those areas. That's the intent, but a specific lot or anything like that hasn't been determined.
And you probably can't answer this question, but what is, in my mind, what does that look like? We solely buy up the property in the area. We use some sort of condemning of the property to take control of it and buy it at market value. I mean, how does this work that we would get that property?
I mean, there's a lot of paths you can go. Eminent domain or condemning a property is one way to do it. I wouldn't suggest that because it's very much not popular usually, but maybe somebody's decided they're going to redevelop a piece of property and the city's like, actually, we're interested in that. Could we buy it off you? That kind of thing. So it kind of sets you up for the opportunities when they present themselves, but there isn't a specific how we're going to build those or where yet determined.
Okay, but we would be collecting money for these parks that we would theoretically need to buy chunks of or acquire the property somehow with it in the middle of already existing residential.
Yes.
Okay.
Question about that. Will that come to the council before we really decide that that area needs a park, or is that set in stone already within that?
Well, they're identified in the pros plan as there should be parks in those areas, but no, we couldn't go out and just start.
It would still have to come here.
Yeah, I don't have the authority to spend more than $2,500, let alone buy 5 acres in a residential neighborhood.
Not necessarily buy it, but continue down that path.
Yeah.
I guess I just want to know, just kind of looking, because I know there are some parks close to where this is, and whether that's a true need for the city or not.
And it could be,
Concern to me.
I feel like maybe.
I just add from, I think Jeff's done a great job of answering, but the proposed park search area designation for those 2 came about because the adopted methodology for how we determine if we have a successful citywide park system is try and get a park within a half-mile walk of everybody's house. And consistently, when we spread the map out, those 2 areas were, as Jeff said, a park desert. So to establish those in there allowed us to put us in a position that if there was ever a situation where we could acquire something or develop an existing portion, if we could find a way to, if the golf course were to ever go up, or a section of it were to ever go up, we could develop that as a small park area and really knock out a big section of housing that is unwalkable to a park, because we're not able to look at other properties or playgrounds on schools as parks where we don't have anything there to offer. So it's to put us in a position in the future to eventually be able to make those decisions.
Correct. And if they're not included, then we can't collect money. So if an opportunity ever came up, it becomes very difficult to react to it, essentially, because you don't have money in the bank to help pay for it.
So his question about you can't include schools, is that what you just said?
Correct.
So what if you ever had a partnership with a school property? Can you use SDCs to provide some park equipment on a piece of property that we partnered with?
If you had an IGA with an agreement with the school district to use that property for parks, and they were going to keep it open, I don't see why there would be any reason legally why you couldn't use the SDCs for that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? I think we're good.
Okay. All right, so now that we've kind of covered the base assumptions of what projects were in the adopted plan and what that intent was, we can start getting into the specifics of the dollars here. So they did a pretty thorough analysis and determined that the cost per acre to develop 1 acre park is about $600,000. That using that 8.5 acres per 1,000 equivalent population, you would need about 128 acres, with the total investment needed to accommodate all that 15,000 people growth of about 81.9 million. That's assuming money we have in the bank and some of the other things that you work into it. And then of course, those costs include the land acquisition and park development. So again, if a developer, we say we need a park in this location, if the city buys it and develops it and they pay the full park SDCs, or they can develop it or give the property over to us and then they would get credit for those SDCs. Then we make some additional financial adjustments. There's the compliance and admin costs that adds fee to this. And then we assume, again, the SDC balance that we have now helps offset that, as well as historically we received about a 17% offset from grants and donations in the past. So that was worked into the number as well. So when you take that net adjustment into consideration, the gross cost per equivalent person was going to be about $5,500. We do the adjustment. We come up with a net cost per equivalent person of $4,936.73 for every equivalent person that comes in the city to develop the park system as adopted. So how that works for housing, essentially, we went with a more tiered system. In the past, it was just, you have a single family home, you pay $1 amount. The new best practice for SDCs is you kind of base it on a graduating scale. So smaller homes are going to have less people in them, so they're going to pay a smaller amount of dollars than a large home, which could have more people in it. So that's where we get these numbers from. And so the average house is about $12,500 SDC. So if you remember, about 4,900. So a 1,200 square foot house is assumed to be a little over 2 people on average living in it. So what does that actually mean when compared to what we have now? So currently our park SDC is $3,200 per unit. It's the same number for those units depending on the size. It doesn't fluctuate. But we're actually going to have the SDC going down next year. The construction cost index dropped about 3.8% last year, which is a little different. So our SDCs are based on the construction cost index, not the CPI. So the CPI went up, but the construction cost index went down. So our SDCs are actually going to have to go down in July based on how we do our methodologies.
So it's per unit. So if you have apartments, it's per unit of each apartment?
Yes, I believe, well, I have to look into that again. I don't calculate the park SDCs every day, so let me double check that.
And then one other question, just to clarify, is this an SDC that is waived for affordable housing?
It would be waived for affordable housing as the way the code is written now. Oh, wait, no, it's not, sorry. You're right, yeah.
Okay.
Affordable housing does pay the park SDC. It's the sewer and transportation SDC it doesn't pay. Yes. It is per unit? Okay. Thank you, Heather. So.
Yes.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Did you have your hand up, Sal? You can go before me because I've asked questions.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, thanks. So in the pros plan, you're saying we're going to have an increase on, I should probably wait till you get to commercial and industrial for this conversation, for this question, but we're going to have an increase in the residential. And we're also going to start, the idea is, in this discussion, is to potentially start increasing or having, where we didn't have it all, park SDCs on commercial and industrial.
Correct.
Sorry, my brain is struggling. If we don't increase commercial and, or don't start doing commercial and industrial, does that mean that residential has to come up higher? Or is this being added on top of the pile?
So the methodology was assumed that you were going to only collect the amount of money needed to build what was in the adopted plan. If you choose not to collect money from commercial and industrial, but you still want to build everything in the plan, then yes, you would have to raise the residential rates to cover that cost.
So your proposal today that you're presenting to us assumes paying all of that with commercial and industrial?
No, the proposal assumes if you raise the residential rate to 12.5 and start charging for industrial and commercial,
Right.
that total amount over 20 years would pay for the growth that's assumed in the plan.
And the build out of all those parks in that 20-year window?
Correct.
And we're doing that on 4 times the cost of current charges to residential plus charging commercial and industrial?
Correct. That's what it would take to cover, to collect the correct amount of dollars for the assumed growth.
Okay, thanks.
Sal, did you have a question?
Can you go back to the previous slide?
This one or the one before this?
No, the question I had was on apartments. I thought we had a lower basis for multifamily residential on the SDCs. Am I misremembering that, or was that for a different type of SDC?
It's probably for a different type of entity, but
So currently, for our SDC methodology, we do it per housing unit. Multifamily calculates slightly smaller per housing unit, but still per housing unit. And then in this SDC methodology, there's ways they're addressing multifamily differently.
And then I'm hearing that we need a separate legislative action if we wanted, sorry, Kim, if we wanted to discount these SDCs for affordable housing, because that's not envisioned in this proposal, correct?
correct.
Yeah. So, and that's a local choice to amend your code to do that, to exempt affordable housing from parks SDCs, just like you did with transportation and wastewater.
I'd be interested in hearing what other members of the board have to say about that idea as we contemplate this. But at first blush, I'd be in favor of reducing SDCs, if we raise the SDCs for affordable housing.
Councilor Geary?
Yeah, my thought on that is, yeah, I'm all for it. I think sort of on the lines of a question that's already been asked about residential and creation of the commercial, that assumption of what you're presenting, what's presented to us is the model to pay for everything in the plan. When we take money away from our ability to do that, we need to backfill that, or we're taking away elements of the plan. So to create a credit or a discount or a pass or a waiver for the affordable housing, I would like to know what that cost overall would be and how the fund itself would get backfilled to pay for that. I also would point out that I think affordable housing, the fully built out park system would most benefit people living in the community who are taking advantage of the affordable housing stock. And so I think it's very important to live up to the expectations of something like this that we can do for them in the community if they are living here and using that tax credit, or living in a house that used the tax credit.
And I kind of see that a different way, that I think that we're waiving the other SDCs, and affordable housing usually doesn't pay property taxes. And yes, I think they are going to use more of the park system, that I think that is one thing that can stay in there.
Okay.
Councilor Cunningham?
Heather, maybe you can answer this one. When affordable housing projects use state dollars, are they allowed to use those state dollars towards city SDCs?
My understanding, when they go for tax credits and LIHTC funds, that it's part of the total project cost. They'll put a total project cost together for the project, and SDCs will be part of that.
Okay. And the other, remind me, when we talk about our affordable housing, Yamhill County is lumped in with another region, so like, basically or I could be misspeaking right now, but like a one-bedroom apartment is like $1,800 is like what's considered affordable, correct?
Oh, I think what you're getting at is if you look at the HUD standards, so the
Yeah.
federal standards for affordable housing, McMinnville is captured in the Portland metro area. And so what's considered affordable in Portland is considered affordable here. And typically it's a higher rent range. because
Correct.
of the difference in the median household wage.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Tukalski?
Yeah, so I had a question for Councilor Geary, just a clarification, and then just a general question. Sorry, I've been sick. If I may clarify, it sounded as though you wanted more information before you were willing to remove the SDCs from affordable housing, or were you just in favor of adding SDCs to affordable housing?
I would, in order to support waiving the Parks SDCs for affordable housing, I would want to see the plan that would go with it to backfill the overall Parks Fund that would join those together. Does that make sense? So we need all this money. If we're going to discount if we're going to discount projects from paying into this, how do we make this whole so the fund can still be done and we can still achieve that goal?
That's what I thought you were saying, so thank you for the clarification. Second, I just need to state I would be in favor of eliminating the SDCs on affordable housing.
Counselor Chenoweth?
I would be not necessarily in favor. I would lean more toward what you were saying, Mayor. I think that I think it's an interesting admission that in order to build affordable housing, we can't add SDCs, essentially. But I think that this is one area that I would not be in favor of waiving those fees.
It kind of goes back to what Scott was saying. It's kind of in the whole plan that comes from the state. So a lot of times it's going to be money that comes through from the state to pay those STCs, which give the city funds to build the park.
Yeah, and it's not in tonight's presentation.
Oh,
but-
well, we got off track.
Right, but no, there's the different options. Obviously, the council made a decision to waive SDCs in the past. But if that's something that council is interested in continuing to look at, because there's a whole range, you can go from charging the SDCs to waiving them to completely, somewhere in the middle, discounting them 50%, 25%. You can also set a limit for how much you're willing to backfill every year. Some communities say that we'll first 200,000 in affordable SDCs, we're going to discount those off projects, so you can always know how much you're waiving each year. So there's a lot of things we can do with that, and that's a discussion we could always bring back to the council to talk through a little bit more if you're interested in how the community could use current best practices to waive SDCs for affordable housing.
I think that we keep that in mind, but I don't want to necessarily put it on the work plan right now. Just we have so many other things on work sessions that I think a future thought that we revisit to the council whether we want to talk about it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I can just comment on that.
Counselor Peralta?
I do think it's important that we address that question just because we have some large projects that are affordable housing projects that we're negotiating right now, that this is going to be an important question in whether or not we're able to do those projects. So I think we need to come to a conclusion probably sooner rather than later.
Mayor, if I may.
Counselor Tukalski?
I don't think I was clear enough earlier. All I'm asking for is consistency in the policy, and if we have SDCs removed for affordable housing in a few areas, but not in all of the areas, that seems inconsistent to me. So the reason I would be in favor of that is because we had removed them elsewhere. So Thank you.
Any other comments right now?
May I make a general comment?
Yep.
So, I mean, I think this is probably something that the whole board understands, but I just want to kind of put this out there, is that, you know, system development charges are fundamentally a question of whether or not the existing tax base is going to shoulder all or most of the burden of development, or whether incoming development is going to cover those costs. And from what I've seen, most residents in the community don't really want a lot of new growth. But when we have growth, they want to make sure that it pays for the things that make McMinnville a wonderful place to live. And we've not invested sufficient funds in our parks for probably 40 years. The existing parks plan that we're operating under, and Heather can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it only funded parks to 50% of the cost of parks maintenance. And so we're living a reality where a lot of things that were in that plan didn't get done because it wasn't funded. And, you know, I don't want to get us into that same kind of situation. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that really this is a choice about whether or not we're going to either have this infrastructure and whether or not it's going to be paid for by the existing tax base, or whether it's going to be paid for by future people moving here. And that's really fundamentally the question. So.
One thing we have to keep in mind, though, is we have to maintain what is built.
Correct.
So
That part is.
build it and not maintain it is something we have to look at as well.
Yeah. So at that 12,500 for an average house, where does that put McMinnville? This is always the question that always comes up when you start talking new SDCs with a council. So I took a look at 14 kind of equivalent communities or park districts to see where that number would put us if about 12.5 is our average. And so currently we're really in the bottom third for amount of SDCs we're collecting. And this kind of puts us into that top third. And as you can see with parks, a lot of it has to do with kind of your policy of what kind of a park system do you want to have. So at this rate, there's larger communities that would have SDCs smaller than ours, and there's smaller communities that would have SDCs larger than ours. So it's really a matter of what is the policy of the city for what kind of a park system it wants to have. So to kind of break it down a little bit more, so looking at the SDCs for communities that are closest in population, we'd be on the high end for other communities in Oregon that are close in population to us. Or if we look at our closer neighbors, again, we're on the high end, but we're not the highest if this is what the adopted SDC is. Now, for the charging of commercial and industrial, it's really, really hard for me to do an apples to apples comparison because it's really the kind of methodology that you're picking. So are you basing it on square footage? Are you basing it off parking stalls, whatever it might be? But what is important to note is of those 14 communities that I compared, 10 of them have some kind of non-residential park SDC. And these numbers up here are based on, again, what it would cost per person, and assuming these type of businesses would produce how many equivalent employees they would produce. So retail and hospitality is going to have a higher SDC charge than a warehouse because a warehouse is going to have less than employees. But again, these are all just extrapolations from the amount of that dollar amount of that $4,900 for each equivalent person.
Question. So these would apply if somebody built a new industrial or commercial building.
Correct.
Would any of this apply if somebody was remodeling an existing facility?
So the way our SDCs work now generally is if you're just remodeling, but you're not increasing your usage or anything like that, you don't pay an additional SDC. If you're remodeling and increasing your business size, so you're making a larger building or whatever it might be, So for transportation, we look at the amount of trips that get created. If your remodel is going to create more trips, then yes, you would be paying more SDCs. So in this scenario, I believe it would be set up that if your remodel leads to a larger square footage and more employees, then yes, you would pay an SDC for only that increase, not your total amount.
Increase of that square footage?
Yes.
Okay. But there, go ahead, Councilor Kenworth.
I assume no credit if it leads to a decrease.
Correct. We wouldn't pay people back because if it's a decrease, they never paid in the first place.
So talk to me about how that works exactly. If we have a set dollar amount we're trying to raise to, and we're charging multiple times for the same location, and we created the methodology originally based on the square footage, how are we not ending up with more than we actually originally intended?
Well, I guess maybe I'm not understanding the question completely, so if I start going down the wrong path, let me know. But the existing park system that we have today for the existing employees and residents we have today is set. It's considered full capacity right now, snapshot in time. So if you adopt this SDC, any kind of growth beyond that, we're assuming we're going to be we're going to have to build more park system to account for that. So if somebody remodeled and built a smaller business on their property, well, they never paid anything in the first place, so there's nothing to credit them back. If they were increasing capacity, that's assumed you're bringing in more usage of the park system, so we need to collect the dollar amount for that business to pay its share.
So yeah, I think you're missing where I'm going. We created a dollar amount of projects that we need to pay for. Then we calculate out how much for each location we need in revenue, essentially, in order to reach that dollar amount, and average that out across the population using whatever methodology we used, okay? If I have a building, let's say I have a building that's going to be built in the McMinnville Landing,
Yes.
and we build that out and it pays an SDC.
Yes.
5 years later, a new entity takes over, and mind you, we already calculated what we needed from that square footage. Okay? 5 years later, a new entity takes over and doubles the need for trip usage to that location. We already calculated how much we needed from that location to meet the pros plan project list. It doesn't change the number of parks we need. It doesn't change the number of existing parks within the pros plan, yet now we're going to charge a second time an increase.
That would only be for a redevelopment that's increasing trips for like a transportation SDC. The park SDC would have been based on the original square footage, and that would not have changed in that scenario, so they would.
Okay, so it won't change on the park side.
Correct. That was just an example, sorry, that was my miscommunication.
No worries.
That was an example of how we increase the transportation SDC. So the park SDC, if you're increasing your square footage, you would pay more, but if you're maintaining the same square footage and the same usage, it's a warehouse that's staying a warehouse, nothing would change. If it's a warehouse that turns into a hospitality situation, I don't know where people like to sleep these days, but that's the kind of thing that it would, you would have
Even
to.
though-
You would charge the
Use would
delta.
change.
And they would just be charged the delta between
Yes.
those two.
Yes.
And I get that, where I'm confused, and even on that I'm confused, because we originally created the methodology for that location already. If we come back and ask for more for that location, and I get with transportation, that's different because road usage changes, but the amount of parks we're having is not changing. So,
Well, sorry, Heather, but again, it would be, the usage has changed in that scenario. So if somebody built a warehouse, 5 years later, somebody comes in and decide they're going to convert that warehouse to an office space.
then do we go back and whatever we increase that value there, do we take it off from the other calculations that we've done? Because we don't need to, if we've already spread it out over the space, I'll do this on a later time, one-on-one, because maybe we can get to where my question is here.
And if I can, just really quickly, SDCs are impact fees. They're called impact fees for a reason. So it's how much impact that use is creating on the amenity, right? So presumably, when you go from a warehouse to a retail use, the change in use, you're bringing more employees to that space. Those more employees are creating that 1/3 more per employee impact on the park system. So you're getting to capacity quicker, and that's where the change in use and the charge is coming from.
But it's, yeah, I think what his thing is, but it's not, but you can't use it for maintenance. So you already have the park, and so you can't use those SDCs to maintain it.
Well,
So
and again,
it
we're
wouldn't be
just
built.
assuming a certain amount of growth of new jobs. You have to make an assumption and build a methodology from there. It's not going to be
SDCs go
perfect,
after 20.
but it's defensible and legal is essentially the key there.
Right, but at the end of 20 years,
Okay.
you're going to need more money
Point
Okay.
of order here?
for the next plan.
So we'll continue the topic. Is there any more questions on the numbers? Recognizing we have a little less than 15 minutes before the regular council meeting. I only have a couple more slides after this, so we're getting close to the end.
I'm sorry, Dan. Okay.
Okay. So did want to point out, so this was first brought to the council in July of '24. It was decided to not move forward at that time. So just an idea, looking at the growth we had since that time, there's about 2 million in missed residential SDCs and about 700K in non-residential just from the 5 largest industrial and commercial developments alone in that 18-month period. So it does make a pretty big difference over time if we continue to wait to do any kind of update to this methodology. So basically the key policy takeaways I wanted the council to have this evening were growth pays for the growth capacity at today's level of service. So maintain the amount of parks we have now would grow at the same rate as the new equivalent residents would come in. These projects are all directly tied to the CIP that was adopted in the PROS plan. Again, there's no funding for operations and maintenance in this. And the way this is built out meets the financial transparency and legal defensibility requirements for SDCs in the state of Oregon. So really it's, do you have any final questions? And then does council need any additional information before staff can prepare a resolution and ordinance to bring forward?
Counselor Tukalski?
Yeah, thank you. Jeff, I just want to check in with you because lately we've been giving you from the council some pretty squishy answers, and it's hard to move forward if you don't have proper direction.
Yeah.
Have we given you enough direction to move forward, and is there anything else that you need from us, clarity-wise?
So I can move forward bringing a resolution to adopt it as it was determined at any time, but I want to make sure what I bring forward is something that the council feels they have all the information they need to make a decision on. So I can bring it forward at any time, but my biggest thing here is I need to know, do you all need additional information or want to have more discussion amongst yourselves about what's in this methodology before I do that?
I would like more discussion amongst, and more research myself, just concerned about the economic impact that we're already having here, and then we're going to add a bunch of fees to our commercial and residential and all the other fees that go along. The amount of money that has to be spent before they can even put a shovel in the ground is a lot. So I absolutely want to have a little bit more information for myself before I decide. Councilor Chenoweth?
I would second that. I am very reticent to do this at this time. You know, you pointed out that we'll be in the top tier and on both levels of your examples you put in the spreadsheet, yet we're in below the median average for income with our residents. Just to turn the dirt before we even start talking fees on a new residential property, we're looking at $225 to $240 for the price of the lot. That's before any of the construction. That's before any of our SDCs. I'm reticent to move forward on this at this time, as I just don't think it's affordable for our residents. It seems like we're going from a 4-time increase just seems impractical to me at the residential level. And I also am not really a fan of adding this to the industrial or the commercial portion.
Counselor Peralta?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm in favor of bringing this forward. The median selling price of a new home in McMinnville is between $600,000 and $650,000. These SDCs are about 2% of the sales price of that kind of home. And while I agree that that is a significant impact, I don't think we're charging any more than the cost of doing business, the cost of putting the parks in that we need to actually have a high quality of life. I've lived in communities that have not invested in themselves. I think that they tend to not attract businesses. I think businesses care far more about the quality of life in a community than they do about having the lowest possible tax base. So I'm in favor of this. I would like it to come back with at least the option for debating the discount for affordable housing, because I think that will at least be a debate on the council, and certainly we can have a debate for whether or not 100% cost recovery is where we need to be, but there's no question that 25% cost recovery is not going to solve any problems for this community, and we need to actually have some courage on this dais to make decisions to invest.
Counselor Geary?
Thank you. I would second that. My level, I'm ready for staff to bring back resolutions and ordinances to put this, enact this. I think it lines up with one of the unified council goals that we have and still maintain. I would just add the fact that a bare lot does cost $220,000. I see actually as an argument that's so decoupled from the actual cost of construction that that's not a relevant statistic or helpful in determining setting our SDCs. In fact, I think when you look at where we are in all SDCs, not the rank of parks SDCs when looking at how we want our parks system to be, I think when you look at all the SDCs in terms of cost to develop and build here in McMinnville, based on those previous figures we saw when this was originally posted, we were second to last, and if you add ours, we would be barely in the middle of there. So looking at the entire picture, I still think, and speaking for myself as a builder in this and other communities, we are still low and will still remain low, and I think we are underserving the most needy in our community by still trying to fund park systems on 50% of a 1998 funding model for a modern plan that we unanimously adopted in the mid-2024. So I'm ready for that to be brought back.
Counselor Cunningham?
Yeah, I would generally agree with Councilor Peralta and Councilor Geary, although I do share some of the concerns of possibly right-sizing it. And so if there was an option to look a little bit closer at each individual project, and maybe we see if there's something that we would take out at that point in time. But I don't know if this is the time for that. But looking at the numbers, and I could see being in the top third being a little daunting, but at the same time, we see what's happened in Sherwood and Tualatin, and it has not slowed down any of the construction and growth in those two areas. So if Sherwood's way above where we're at currently and would be still above us by a significant amount, I don't necessarily think it's going to slow down the growth, because developers are looking for land, and we're going to be one of the places that actually has land left. So,
Counselor Tukalski?
Yeah, I would like a bit more information, but is it possible for us to set a deadline by which to make an actual decision so we can move forward? Because just drawing this out costs money every time we're not collecting.
Yeah, I'm just, you look at a hotel, and how much is a hotel going to pay that comes in? $100,000 in SDCs? I think there's more information to gather for me, but I seem to be outruled on that. But I think we need to have some answers before we just put it in place.
So I have provided the methodology that's in there, and we have all the parks plans. So there's all the information of how it was built is in there. I guess when, if there's additional information that's needed, besides some of the things that I wrote down and some of the questions that I didn't have for you this evening, if there's other specific information you want me to bring, that would help me hit any kind of deadline you might want me to be hitting.
So it's almost 7 o'clock. Can we
Yep.
email those to you? If we can't get them to you
Email them
right
to
now?
Adam.
Okay. Any other, Counselor Chenoweth?
Yeah, I just want to comment, a quick look online shows the median prices in McMinnville at $450.
Is that new homes?
Anything else? Are you comfortable?
I'm fine.
I just want to make sure you have what you need. Okay, then I'm going to adjourn the work session at 6:56. And we'll be back about 7.
Yeah, I said median new construction, not median.
Here. Now, if you're able to stand, I'd ask that you'd stand for the pledge, please. Now, I just wanted to make an announcement that yesterday, the city received a resignation of Councilor Jessica Payne from her seat on the city council. The resignation was effective for immediately and is the reason she's not with us tonight on the dais. City staff is already working on a presentation and resolution that will be at our next regular scheduled meeting, which is February 24th, to inform the council and the public of the next steps to be taken in order to ensure the continued public representation of that ward and governance by this body under the charter. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Jessica, Councilor Payne, for her service to the city and sitting up on this dais. We appreciate it. I know all of us appreciate it, and I'm sure her ward does as well. So if she's listening, I hope she hears that, and thank you very much. So now it's time for public comment. Just remember that any interested audience member are invited to provide comments, and any comment provided that requires some type of follow-up will be assigned to a staff member. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a land use decision that is or will be in front of the city council, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. Comments are limited to 4 minutes per person. The total is 32 minutes. It's my understanding that we already have several people pre-registered again and likely not going to get to everyone. So if you'd like to submit written comments, please do so. You can send them to the city recorder team, and those on Zoom, the email is found on the chat function. Please announce your name and the city you live in when you come up to speak. And just a reminder to just stay within the 3 minutes, the 4 minutes, we changed it. And just remember to be polite and kind while we're here. Thank you. Claudia.
Before we begin, I do want to state for the record that we received electronic email comments from Dan Gibson, Richard Martinez, Lauren Randolph, and Ginny Dykes, and they'll be added to the amended packet tomorrow. First up, we have Caleb Polvuka.
Oh, Olivka. Hi, Caleb.
Hello. My name is Caleb. I'm a Dayton resident. I work in McMinnville in Ward 3, as does my wife. My son goes to school in Ward 3. I lived in Ward 3 for years, and my family all lives in Ward 3. So I'm a Dayton resident with vested interest in Ward 3 in particular, I guess. Councilors, Mayor, if I may, safety is the backbone of our community. You have to feel safe. If you're not going to feel safe, you're not going to stay here. Mayor Morris, those were your words in a budget committee meeting last year. While campaigning in an office, you've repeatedly emphasized safety is a major priority of your administration. Due process rights and freedom from illegal search and seizure are foundational liberties guaranteed to everyone within the borders of this country. These liberties afford us safety from arbitrary injustices. Another foundational American principle is the role that state, county, and municipal governments play in checking federal overreach and providing more relevant and immediate governance to their citizens. As a country founded in defiance of monarchy, it is a pillar of our democratic experiment. Oregon's federal district court issued a ruling last week confirming a pattern of cruel civil rights violations at the hands of federal immigration agents here in our state. Even the most deferential to and trusting of the federal government must recognize this. In acknowledgement of these dangers and of the constitutional safeties guaranteed to your citizens, has your or the other members of the council's position on the role of municipal government in addressing public safety concerns changed? Why are there any lingering questions about the absolute extent to which the city might leverage its power to address this crisis, safeguarding the liberty of its residents? The extent of McMinnville's contribution to this task thus far has been to propose supporting a meaningful survey of affected businesses. Meanwhile, other municipalities have leaned on existing resources, such as their legal teams, law enforcement agencies, and other departments, to creatively find ways to foster safety in their communities with the tools currently available to them. You, Mayor, more specifically ran for office on a promise to keep the people of McMinnville safe, and you have those same tools available to you. Why have you not used them up until this point? Something as simple as a declaration of emergency would declare your intentions as a council to do so without committing the city to a particular course of action. I know you and all of you care deeply for the community, and you couldn't have known that this would be the definitive public safety threat during your tenure as mayor and your tenures as council members, but it is. Community members, private citizens, are doing everything within their power to look out for each other and keep each other safe. Will you all not do the same? I look forward to your direct public response when you deliberate this evening. Thank you.
Yep. Claudia?
Next, we have Todd Godfrey.
Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for having me. My name is Todd Godfrey. I'm a resident of McMinnville. I come tonight speaking in favor of something you have on your agenda tonight, number 2026-07. Many of you know me. I've been a long-term labor leader in the city of McMinnville. I've worked for the city for over 15 years, and I've seen a lot of changes and a lot of ups and downs in the city. As my position as labor leader, I've been intimately involved in a lot of the decisions that have been made and trying to help guide the best I can with the group that we have in a direction that's most beneficial for our members in the city and the city that we help every day. One of the difficulties that we've had over my career is the leadership at the highest level in the city. And that's come from a bunch of different reasons, but what I can say is that most recently having Adam Garvin as the interim city manager and having him in many leadership roles within the city has been very beneficial. I've looked back over the last few years and seen how the city has had some difficulties with past relationships with other entities within the city, and seen how that has kind of broken down over the years. And I hope to have a city manager that is going to rebuild a lot of those relationships and get us back to the thriving city that we were. I do think Adam is that person. I do think Adam will do a good job, and I think he's got the connections and relationships that we're looking for in a city manager with the city of McMinnville. So that's what I'm gonna have to say tonight, and I appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ames Beerley.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Ames Beerley, and I live in McMinnville. 2 weeks ago, we heard the history of the settlers who built the city of McMinnville, including many men whose names are still enshrined in our street signs, historic building names, and the names of natural features in this area. I was curious about the other histories that we could also learn about as a community, so I did some reading. The Hellas people made this area their home between 8,000 and 10,000 years ago. For centuries, they managed the prairies and savannas of the region using traditional burning practices at the end of each summer. They are part of the Kalapuya people. In 1844, the first white settlers arrived in this area. The indigenous population had already been devastated by the introduction of unfamiliar diseases by settlers. In the late 1850s, when 27 tribes from Oregon were forced by the U.S. military to abandon their ancestral lands and move to the southern Yamhill Valley, becoming the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. The Yamhillis were among those tribes, the remaining people who had not been devastated by disease. The Yamhillis people were forcibly removed from this area in 1856, the same year that the first house was built by white settlers in the McMinnville city limits. In the late 1800s, moving to another population that has shared our city, hundreds of Chinese immigrants lived here in Yamhill County, clearing timber on farmlands, building mills for grain, and building a railway system. Many of these Chinese residents were engineers and businessmen in their older communities, looking for opportunities to build a life just like the countless others who came here from far away. But Chinese residents weren't allowed to own property, vote, or operate businesses. Because of these restrictions, many Chinese residents lived underground beneath the buildings on 3rd Street and couldn't access the same opportunities for advancement and enterprise that others could. These are just 2 examples of the many peoples and cultures that make McMinnville special. I want to point out that our own DEIAC strives to bring these histories forward by celebrating the people from many backgrounds, religions, languages, and other identities that create the unique and beautiful city we call home. I value their work, and I hope everyone in this room does too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Martha Villalobos.
Welcome.
Good evening, mayors and members of the council. My name is Marta, and I have lived in this county for 32 years. I'm speaking on behalf of family too afraid to speak out. Every morning, parents wake up uncertain they will return home. Children cry at the sight of unfamiliar cars, fearing for families they will be taken away. People who build this community live in constant fear. This is not normal. ICE activity has traumatized our neighborhood, tearing family apart and failing on the children with fear instead of hope. Communities are shutting down. Imagine a child too scared to go to school, or a parent saying goodbye, thinking that's the last time they're gonna see their family. This reality families are facing, while immigration laws federal are suffering the trauma are local. This is your people. We urge your mayor to declare a state of emergency. Please provide mental health support, legal aid, food, and housing, and send a message to humanity. Leadership in time like this is about courage and compassion. Please choose courage today. Stand with your immigrants' family. Protect our children. Every children deserves safety. Every parent deserves dignity, and every family deserves hopes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sidoni Winfield.
Welcome, Sid.
Good evening. I am Sidney Winfield, citizen of McMinnville and chair of the Planning Commission. Thank you for allowing me the time to continue my remarks regarding our committees and commissions. Thank you also for your volunteer work. I truly appreciate the time the council members give back to our community. This last month, Councillor Chenoweth stated something along the lines that he prefers not to bring national politics into our local arena. Understandable. However, when national issues infringe on the decision-making of our local law enforcement, our livability, civil rights, and basic due process, the small, little choices at local government have significant impact on its citizens. I have 3 points. 1, I was a bit befuddled when I was told our council was assessing the committees and commissions. Befuddled because I and others value your time. You have committees and commissions to filter information and to take work away from the council so you can be more efficient with your time. I highly recommend that in the future, you ask the committees and commissions to self-assess every 2 years and report back to you, versus notifying us during our meeting before you have a council agenda item evaluating our groups. Your time is too valuable. Point 2. However, reading between the lines, the focus of concern does not seem to be all the committees and commissions, but perhaps only the DEI committee. As I stated before, I disagree with Council Chenoweth in that I agree with Council Chenoweth in that we're not going to get grants. I, however, disagree with his premise. He and other members believe that having a DEI committee will cost us grants. This is another area where national issues actually do impact our local politics. Unlike those who think a DEI committee is going to cost us grants, we need to recognize the DEI committee won't. Under our current tax laws and the one big beautiful bill, it is very likely there are no grants. In the highly improbable event that there are grants, they will be very limited, and sadly, McMinnville will not be in the running for them, DEI committee or not. Pragmatically, McMinnville is in a blue state, and more red cities than our purple MAC will also not get grants because Oregon is a target for this administration. To get rid of a committee that actually may help with getting state grants is short-sighted. As a side note, our national administration has lost all legal cases tying grants to getting rid of DEI. Point 3, we are past the crossroads of our intersection with national and local politics. Approximately 29 of MAC is non-white. MAC High, our future, is 48% minority. National issues regarding due process, which you and I all swore to uphold, are impacting us daily. Getting rid of the DEI committee sends a message that a large portion of our citizens don't matter. Is this the message you want to send? It also does not make fiscal sense. Getting rid of a committee to put the load on staff is an inefficient use of our limited budget. Use your volunteers, use your committee. Lastly, I, the mayor, former Councilor Payne, and many of city staff would not be here, but for what would be considered DEI decisions decades ago. Why are you considering closing the door now? While the Planning Commission has limited contact with the DEI committee, the impact of ADA, considering cultural viewpoints in building design, and the umbrella mission of the committee do impact our decisions. I am grateful for their assistance. I hope you will consider keeping the committee. I believe getting rid of the DEI committee will cost you more in the long run than the small budget cost of currently keeping it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Caitlin Nemeth.
Nice to see you again.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Nemeth. I live and work in McMinnville. I serve on the DEI Advisory Council. For many of us, this committee is not just a role, it's both deeply personal and a crucial civic responsibility. DEI is not about division. It's about representation and access. It's about ensuring that all members of our community, especially those who are targeted, unheard, and overlooked, have a seat at the table and are actually heard when they speak. That's why this matters so much to us as hardworking first-generation immigrants, loving parents, dedicated students, and passionate community members. Inclusion isn't just a concept, it's our shared reality. It's our lived shared reality. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility should never be reduced to a trend, a catchphrase, or a token gesture. Unfortunately, that's what this moment feels like. Like we as a group are being used as an example in someone else's gain, and that hurts. Because what we stand for, representation, access, real inclusion, should not be up for negotiation. Our presence and our resources should be a given, a reflection of our shared values. Our committee is here to ensure that people from all backgrounds are seen, heard, and supported, so that our city can thrive in all its richness and complexity. We already see this shift happening in our education system. More and more students represent what's often called the new majority. But the systems, our schools, our policies, our supports, are not evolving fast enough to meet their needs. These students are growing up in a world vastly different from what past generations have faced. So we ask, how are we preparing them for that future? How are we equipping them to thrive? The city of McMinnville thrives in various areas such as farming and hospitality because of its diversity in culture, experience, ability, and identity. Just because other places have dismantled their DEI efforts doesn't mean we should follow suit. That is not a valid reason to walk away from something so vital. We cannot just be the status quo. It is not about comfort. It is about asking the hard questions. It seems to us that the questions are not being asked, hence our presence is up for debate. Questions like, who is still being left out, and is this the priority? Whose stories are we not hearing, and are you willing to learn? And are you willing to listen? Whose potential are we overlooking? What is true merit? And who benefits from maintaining the status quo, and who does not? Some say DEI is just common sense, and we wish that were true. But if equity were truly common practice, we would see more diversity in our leadership and our classrooms and in the decision-making spaces that shape our daily lives. The truth is, we are not there yet. That's why this work matters. That's why this group matters. The DEI Advisory Committee gives voice to people who have been excluded for far too long. We serve as a reminder of what's missing, and often what's missing is exactly what can move us forward. Please don't silence that voice. Please don't send the message that inclusion is optional or disposable. The work we are doing is necessary, and its value cannot be overstated. Thank you.
Next, we have Aiden Larkin. Aiden? That's everyone that signed up.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We are going to move on to Katie Henry, who is our fiscal year 2024-25 annual comprehensive financial report. Katie Henry, our finance director.
Thank you, Miriam. We have with us tonight Tanya, who is our auditor with Marina & Co. And she was unable to be with us in person tonight, but you can see her on your screen. She is presenting our audit to you. As council, you know, I have sent you this evening a copy of the letter to council, as well as a link to the financial statements for both the city and the, why am I drawing a blank? The
McMinnville Urban Renewal.
Yes, the Urban Renewal Agency. I apologize. The Urban Renewal Agency. Those will be posted for the public who is watching and the public who is here. Those will be posted online first thing in the morning so that you can all see the financial statements. They'll be on the city's website. So with that, I will turn it over to Tanya to give us the update on the audit.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and City Council, I am happy to be here tonight. I apologize for being on Zoom and not being there in person. I'm here to report on the city's June 30, 2025 annual financial comprehensive report, or the city's ACFR, as well as McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency. They both contain an unmodified or clean opinion, which is the highest level of a financial statement opinion that we can give on a financial statement. We also have a report in both financial statements that the Oregon State Legislature has asked us to look at some specific things for compliance. So we test those specific things. And that report can be found on the city's financial statements on page 185 and the Urban Renewal Agency's on page 29. And when we tested compliance in, like with collateral, indebtedness, budgets, ORS 279, which is public purchasing, and budget, We only had one instance of non-compliance, and that was the general fund exceeded appropriations in non-departmental for about $17,000. And that sometimes happens when there's expenditures that come in after year end. And that was the only thing that we noted for non-compliance within the city's financial statement. There was no restrictions placed on us, and there were no significant difficulties during the course of the audit. There were no disagreements with management, and there was one new accounting pronouncement that was implemented this year because of the Government Accounting Standards Board, and that's GASB 101, and that is for compensated absences. We're now required to include sick pay in the financial statements. In the past, it wasn't included because it wasn't seen as a liability if one of the employees had left the city or been terminated. That's not paid out. But we know that people are going to get sick and they're going to use some of that leave. So we've added that as a liability to the financial statements based on this new government accounting standard that was implemented. So if you're looking at the June 30, 2025 and the June 30, 2024 financial statements, there will be a little bit of a difference. It won't be comparing apples to apples because of this new accounting standard. It's been our pleasure to do the audit for the city of McMinnville. This is our last year, and the city has selected new auditors. Appreciate being here tonight. Does anybody have any questions?
It doesn't look like we do, Tanya. Thank you
Have a
very
great
much
night.
for your time, and thank you for all the years of service to the city.
Thank you.
Director Henry, do you have anything else?
Nothing else. The contract for the next auditor will be coming to you at our next city council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Now we move on to reports from councilors on committees and board assignments, and then department head reports. So we're going to put those together, and I'm going to start to my right with Chief Wood.
Good evening, councilors. Attended my first YCOM executive board meeting this afternoon. The board had a presentation from YCOM director regarding performance measures that have been implemented at YCOM over the past couple of years and the results of some of those performance measures. Very, very positive trends for performance coming out of the employees there at YCOM. There was also a discussion about the current 190 user agreement between the user agencies of YCOM. That agreement's still being developed, and we hope to have a work session on that in March. At the PD, glad to announce that yesterday, we started a new officer at MacPD. His name is Zeriel Renteria. He comes to us from the state. That's where he was working prior to coming to work at MacPD. We have an academy spot slated for him on the 30th of March. We have some other officers also currently enrolled and undergoing academy training at DPSST in Salem. Everybody's doing very well, and we're excited to get them back here to McMinnville and get them in a patrol car, in the field training program, and on the street.
Awesome, thank you. Jenny Berg, Parks and Rec and Library.
Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Sorry for the delay here. On Saturday, February 7th, there was a free hands-only CPR class offered at the Senior Center, and they had participants from ages 9 to 82 years of age. Also, good news, the inspection for the elevator at the community center will be occurring this Friday at 11:30 a.m. And so we're looking, if it passes inspection, there will be an operational elevator at the community center. There have been a change in the lessons at the Aquatic Center. One of the things that's been added is a program called Bubble Buddies, and it's for 3- and 4-year-olds and a parent or caregiver to be in the pool with them, also with an instructor to learn. And then they're also offering classes for adults, never too late to learn to swim, ages 14 years and up. And as I'm guessing we all know, that is a good safety and life-saving skill. They had 196 enrollees for their lessons in January and 184 as of this report in February. Also, the Aquatic Center will be closed to host the district meetings on February 13th and 14th. In library news, I've talked about this a little bit, but there are financial programs that we have been offering for kids. We hosted 9 financial education programs aimed at elementary age children, thanks to a grant supported by the American Library Association and FINRA, which is a financial organization. And that provided a variety of interactive games, and one of those games was called Pet Sense. It had kids got $150 in money, play money, and then they were able to adopt an animal. The choices of a dog, a cat, a dragon, or a penguin were some of the options. Turns out that a dragon is very expensive to keep. So then they were able to decide what kind of service they wanted to provide to that animal, that they had good, better, or best services at the vet office, obedience school, and this game helped the kids understand the financial topics like budgeting, saving, and making financial choices. There were over 100 participants in these various sessions. Many of those programs were hosted at the library, but they were also outreach programs to the Girl Scouts and a nonprofit YCCO Family Connections group.
Vicki Hedges, HR Director.
Thank you, Mayor. As I promised last time I was here, we rolled out our annual trainings this year for employees, which includes several important trainings. So I'm just going to read them off here. Appropriate workplace behavior, cybersecurity related to using AI safely, hazard communication training for the OSHA requirement, slip hazards, first aid, de-escalation, implicit bias, mandatory reporter, and safety and local government trainings. Those have all gone out and are required to be completed in June. In addition, our employees that work outdoors will be required to complete 2 additional trainings. Our supervisors have 2 additional trainings on top of that. And then we have a driver training for anybody that drives for the city. Also this year, we reduced our required trainings for those employees that are temporary. That was a big ask from our staff last year. There was a lot of training for employees that may be only working with us for a few months. So we were able to cut down their training time to about 1/3 for this year's annual training.
Right. Jeff Hunsaker, Public Works.
Yes, so Jenny mentioned the remodel of the elevator. We're really excited about that. Johnny's somehow found the time to help get that updated with everything else that he does, which is great. We had staff attend a utility relocation pre-con meeting with ODOT for the 99 ADA ramps project. So that's still moving forward and should be starting construction here this spring. And then also our operations staff took advantage of the nice weather and dry weather last week, and were able to install the flashers on the PED signs and get the new continental striping at the Cypress and Old Sheridan intersection, which we had spoken with council about a couple months ago. So that pretty much wraps up our short-term improvements for that intersection to improve safety there. And then we put some money into the budget to look at doing the midterm improvements, which is a push-button rapid flashing beacon for that area, and starting that design next year. That's all I have.
Can I just add one thing for your staff? Is it your staff, along with a subcontractor, cleaned up the city park and did a really nice job?
Oh, yep, we did that too.
Oh, sorry,
two
Claudia
things.
Cisneros, City Recorder.
Two quick things to add. City offices will be closed on Monday, February 16th in observance of President's Day. And then next Wednesday, we have a joint work session with MAC Water and Light. It will be at the Police Department Training Room.
Thank you. Counselor Cunningham.
All right. We had our affordable housing meeting where we swore in and re-swore in some members, as well as Rachel Flores is our chair once again, and I'm the vice chair. And then Evan led us through the work plan for the year. He did let us know that he's doing a little double time, and so some of that work plan might be pushed a little bit, but they're still really charging away. We're really hoping that we will have the excise tax credits here shortly, I am told. So with that, I also joined the planning commission for the training for land use, and that was exceptionally informative, and I was glad I didn't have to stay another 3 hours after that. But in any case, always good to learn more about how we can do what we do. With that being said, then just a smattering of meetings, met with Lucetta, our state representative, met with our mayor, and then met with Unidos a couple times, and generally fairly positive conversations, I would say, from everybody, and I'm looking forward to seeing the directions that those go. With that being said, I would like to make a motion to have a declaration of, an emergency statement made. I'm not making a declaration of emergency. I believe that we are experiencing an emergency. I think we need to tell our community that we are here to support them.
I have a motion.
Might I ask for some clarity as to the statement of the motion?
The clarity would be that in most cases, what we've seen in other communities, their emergency declarations amount to pretty much just statements of emergency. And so I would like to craft that statement fairly in line with some of those things, but understanding that at this point in time, I am not asking for financial budgetary restrictions to be removed, as well as I'm not looking to currently have the 30-day resolution or ordinance timeframe. So,
And are you moving for staff to write this statement, or to bring a statement, or to set up a group to write this statement?
Certainly, I would like to have staff, specifically you, David, participate, making sure that we don't step into a realm that is not city specific, but I would like to have there be at least a few council members and the mayor involved in that group, and I don't know if we'd be allowed to have an outside participation, but I would say at least 2 council members and the mayor and yourself.
So we have a motion on the floor for creation of a subcommittee to include myself to draft a statement with regard to federal immigration activity and solidarity with the community.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Would you accept a friendly amendment to have the committee and then just have David review the work of the committee afterwards, so we don't have to use his time?
Absolutely.
And I would second that.
Did you get that change?
I did not get the amendment, I'm sorry.
The suggestion, David, was, or the request was to amend it so that you wouldn't have to be a member of the committee, but you could just review the work of the committee.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm just trying to think through the process now. The motion is on the floor, and so there's an amendment. We need a second for the amendment.
I would second the amendment.
And then, unless there is discussion, we need a roll call on the amendment.
Any further discussion? Claudia?
Counselor Geary,
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
Nay.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Nay.
Council President Peralta.
Yes.
The motion passes by a vote of 3-2.
That was not the passage of the underlying motion. That was passage of the amendment, which means that the underlying motion now stands as creating a subcommittee of the council that I am not a part of, but may advise on, with the same concept and direction as originally stated. That motion is on the floor and does not have a second.
I'll second the motion.
I have a second from Counselor Geary. Any further discussion? Counselor,
Yeah, although I will probably be voting no, I am curious, is the intent of this motion to specify who the two members of the council are that would be part of this discussion?
I don't think that's necessary, do you?
I don't feel, being a junior member here, I don't feel like I have the power in this one.
I'm just asking if that's the intent. If the intent is to be open-ended as to who it is, or do you have specific people you want to be the ones that are in that discussion?
I believe I'm okay with it being open-ended.
In my opinion, that is the motion on the floor. There has been no direction as to how that committee is populated. That would have to be brought back.
Fair, I just wanted to make sure that was the intent of what we were voting on.
Thank you for the clarification.
May I ask a question?
Counselor Tukolsky?
You're talking about two counselors. Who else is going to be on this? You said
You said mayor.
The mayor?
two counselors and a mayor. Okay. And you said possibly an outside person as well? Is that
No,
what-
the motion was finalized with two counselors and a mayor.
Okay, just want to make certain we're clear. Thank you.
So am I clear, there's two counselors and a mayor, and we are not specifying who the counselors are, or do
We have not. We would have to do
we
that.
need to do that
through
either
future
now
action.
or later?
That could be up to you now or later.
Scott, do it now.
Okay. This motion is still on the floor. It has been seconded, but it has not finished its discussion or been roll called.
I'll volunteer for the group.
Well, I would I would propose a move to amend the motion to establish the working group to be Councilor Cunningham, Council President Peralta, and Mayor Morris.
We already have a motion and a second on that one. So we have to finish that one first before you can add a second one.
Okay.
The second, the attorney is thinking.
That's a whole. Sorry, there are a lot of concepts coming at me at the same time.
That's okay, we have plenty of time.
This can be moved for subsequent amendment while it's still on the floor. Counselor, if you are moving to amend the underlying motion, you may.
Very good.
You, do you need him to repeat what he said?
It would help me a lot.
Had a feeling.
I move to amend the motion, primary motion, to stipulate that the committee be made up of Councilor Scott Cunningham, Council President Sal Peralta, and Mayor Kim Morris.
Any further discussion?
No discussion on this yet. The amendment needs a second before it can be discussed.
Second.
Now, any further discussion? You ready for Claudia? Claudia?
Counselor Geary,
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
I see this as a performative stacking of the cards, so nay.
Counselor Chenoweth,
I agree with you. Nay.
Council President Peralta,
Yes.
and that motion passes 3-2.
A second amendment has been made for populating the recommended committee. And now that motion is on the floor. It has been seconded. It is open for debate and discussion.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Claudia?
Counselor Geary,
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
Nay.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Nay.
Council President Peralta,
Yes.
and that motion passes 3-2.
So we're done. Counselor Cunningham, I'm going to move along to Counselor Chenoweth. Is that Counselor Chenoweth?
Thank you, Mayor. So last few weeks have been a little busy. We have been, the EVLC, which is the McMinnville Economic Vitality Leadership Council, which was created by MacTown 2032, has been working at putting together what its goals are going to be for the short term and the long term. It has been quite a process. Thank you to all of the members that have put in a ton of time in getting this together. I appreciate it greatly, and I hope that we will end up with a product that we're all happy with the direction that we're heading. All of the council should have received an invite to a quarterly, what will hopefully be a ongoing yearly a business forum to give an opportunity for local business leaders and business owners to communicate the challenges and success stories that they have in working with the city of McMinnville to the leaders of McMinnville. That will be this upcoming February 12th, and I am looking forward to that meeting. Thank you for those who have RSVP'd. I was really looking forward to being a part of that training at the Planning Commission, but instead I ended up in Salem at a meeting for the Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation, where we are prepping the capital improvement plan requests for that area. That area covers Marion County, Yamhill County, and Polk County. So we're putting together a list of mid-range priorities for ODOT of projects that have regional importance and feasibility. Some of the projects right now that are being discussed, or one of them, which is being discussed, of course, is the Parkway's desire to have our Newburgh-Dundee bypass completed. And so that will be on that list. I think we're probably this year, and I think this is exciting news, we're going to add the intersection where I think it's Highway 22 and Highway 18 in the middle of Grand Ronde is one of the areas that we'd like to see some priority put to try to resolve the congestion and issues that take place there. That's not a direct result help for McMinnville, but is an indirect for those of us who like to go to the coast. And I think with that, I'm sure I'm missing something, but I'll let it end there. Thank you.
Counselor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. Planning Commission met on the 5th. I was not able to attend that meeting, but they did take a training on land use laws and heard a sign standards exception for the Empower property on Booth Bend. Council of Governments canceled a special meeting for lack of a quorum. and I testified on Senate Bill 1594, which directs the Office of Refugee Advancement to create model policies and standards related to the enforcement of federal immigration standards to governing bodies. The testimony was primarily oriented on encouraging them to keep local governments as part of the bodies that would get advice from this organization. And then I'd like to also just recognize the public service of Councilor Payne and offer my appreciation for that. So thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Councilor Chenoweth remembered something.
Yeah, I knew I'd forgot something. Today I met with Jimena at Unidos, had an hour-and-a-half conversation with her. As some of you know who were here a couple of weeks ago, she asked that we could do that, and I was very excited to have that opportunity. Had a great conversation, left with haven't set a date, but the plan to continue our conversations, and covered lots of ground, found good common ground, found some areas we don't necessarily agree, but it was a great conversation, and I was very grateful to have it.
Thank you. So I attended my monthly meeting. So monthly, all the mayors in Yamhill County, as many as can attend, get together and just talk about things that relate to all of our cities. This month, it was mostly, we talked about public comment procedures and how each city does them a little different. I attended the official retirement luncheon of Tom Tankersley, who retired from the Water and Light Commission. It was a nice gathering of friends and family, and also past commissioners, which was a really interesting to be in the room with all those people that have served the city so well. Attended the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce Greeters at First Federal, and it hosts over 100 people. So if you are part of the chamber and have time to go to Greeters on Friday mornings at 8 o'clock, it's a great place to mingle with other businesses and learn about our community. I spoke at the Seroptimus Club meeting last Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, I also spoke at Rotary. I updated those two groups on what's happening in the city. I met separately with Mayor Ford of Dundee. We talked a little bit about water issues. I did a site visit for my own knowledge to Northwest 25th Street, which is where the air easement issue has been brought up. I attended our legislative committee meeting to discuss federal requirements. Also had one of those today as well. We talked about limits and what the city, if we're going to submit anything to the federal delegation, which at this point it doesn't look like we are, just based on shovel-ready products that we have and the limits that they have and what they want to fund it this year. But we have submitted the Alpine Avenue to the state. I attended the audit committee meeting with Finance Director Henry, and as you heard tonight, we got a clean report. Had my monthly meeting with Commissioner Johnston, and I got him to come with me to the PD, where Officer Zarel Renanteria was sworn in, so that was great to be part of that. And yesterday I met with Superintendent Courtney Ferrura, where we talked about all different kinds of things, but we did come up with We Care for Our Kids. It's a positive process that we're going to work together, myself, the Lafayette, Hillary Malcolmson, the mayor of Lafayette, and Courtney, in regards to positive activities for our kids that they do at school, in our community, and things that we can participate with them and share. I also attended the committee interview for 2 spots that were available on the DEI committee this week. Councilor Gary.
Thank you. Visit McMinnville had no meeting, so nothing to report, but I do want to plug at the end of the month, February 26th, it does start the McMinnville Short Film Festival. And to note, one of the featured panelists is Peter Billingsley, who you may know as Ralphie from Christmas Story. The MIRAC met, and my notes are as follows. We got an update on the legislative ask for funding of Alpine Avenue Development Phase 2. We also, to build some reminders on that, we reviewed the previous work done on the Alpine Avenue design and talked about the future of that. We reviewed a request from the McMinnville Downtown Association to alter facade beautification grants to look less at property by property and more at sections of linear footage of frontage to allow for buildings who have corners or larger areas to apply for larger amounts of money to go to frontage grants where you have a larger building, it may take more work, and we wanted to spur on some beautification projects like that. So I believe the recommendation was to move that forward. We also reviewed and discussed the upcoming budget year for funding the projects for MURAC and talked about the priorities and enacting those projects. Let's see, I continue to engage with citizens on fielding calls on and emails regarding ICE concerns, city manager job search, and traffic safety, as well as spent some good time talking with people just about how and why we're doing what we're doing and the city works just in really nuanced ways. So I'm always happy to try my best and explain why what we do looks the way it does. A couple other little catch-alls. You talked about the school district in opportunity of synergy in my public service that helps the school district out. I'm actually organizing and moderating a lot of the Memorial Elementary Oregon Battle of the Books tournament that they're doing right now. For reference, the Oregon Battle of the Books is a statewide organization that schools can opt into and participate in, and it builds good team building and competition skills for kids who maybe don't otherwise want or like to do or can't do physical sports. It's around books. The statewide volunteer group assigns reading levels for different age groups. For reference, the 3rd to 5th grade right now were assigned a wide variety of 16 books, and if they read them all, it was 3,750 pages of content that they're now getting quizzed on, and they're going through a really fun tournament. So giving kids good, positive things to do. It's really cool to see over there. I also want to add my thanks to Councilor Payne for her years of service on the city council. It was always a pleasure to get to talk to her and work with her. And then I just wanted to clarify, for anyone curious, my regular pair of prescription glasses broke, and so I'm wearing sunglasses tonight. And as a side effect, I look very cool.
Councilor Tukolsky.
Thanks for the explanation. I was actually wondering. Yeah. On the 4th of February, I actually attended the Airport Commission interviews. We have selected a new airport commissioner for the one vacancy that we had, so that's done. With the resignation of Councilor Payne, I did want to bring up the fact that we don't have a liaison to the DEI committee right now, or from the council, so I think it's important to address that. And then I have been conversing as well with at least one of our citizens, and they are asking, and so I wanted to bring this up, that when, and Jeff, this might concern you a bit, the brick wall in City Park, when it does get updated and rebuilt or restored, they're asking that there's signage that's created to acknowledge the Chinese laborers that helped to create that, and that I think that's appropriate to do so. Yep. Thank you. That's it.
Perfect. Interim City Manager Adam Garvin.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I have a couple communications updates. The If I Were Mayor student contest kicked off last week. This is a great opportunity for youth, grades 4 through 12, to get creative and put on their civic leadership hat. So as you see those emails come through from Noel, be sure to share them out to your networks. The more applicants we have, the better. The city is hosting the Chamber's Greeter event on February 20th. So I know that went out in an RSVP email last week along with a bunch of other dates. Appreciate everybody that has responded to those. If you haven't, if you could just respond yes or no. There is one additional date that'll come out for the city-county dinner from Claudia here shortly. So that's April 1st, so put a hold on your calendar for that evening. Another change is this came up in executive team a couple weeks ago. The time that we're getting to business action items in the meeting seems to be getting later and later. And this body has voiced multiple times that they don't like to make decisions late in the evening. So reviewing previous budgets, I went all the way back to 2013 and how the agenda sequence currently came into effect in 19. Before that, item 5, the advice and information items, was at the end of the evening after all the business was conducted, so it was more predictable for citizens and applicants that had business action items that they knew when they were going to be up in the evening, as well as it helps with third-party consultants or outside legal counsel that were paying an hourly rate to sit through these meetings. They can get offline sooner. So we're going to move that to the end of the evening, how it historically has been, at our next council meeting on February 24th. So I wanted you aware of that, and I worked through council leadership with that as well. Currently, my week is consumed with round 1 budget meetings, so my lead times for responses are a little bit longer than you guys might be used to, but I feel it's important to be present in those meetings and let each department have dedicated time to work through their round 1 budget proposals. And attendance-wise, I attended the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Government Regional City Manager Luncheon. That's in Salem once a month. We also put together Yamhill County City Manager's Coffee that I attended last Friday, where we talked about potential IGA synergy and how we can support each other and create some economies of scale of different items. And then attended the swearing in with Mayor Morris yesterday at the PD, and just would like to call out that that officer had a very good showing of his family, and it was great to see the support that he's going to have as he embarks on this new career. So, thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney David Lightberg.
Thank you, Mayor. You will hear from me otherwise tonight, and I have nothing to add to those things. Thank you.
Director Heather Richards.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. 2 items. One, I wanted to let everyone know you should have received a flyer in the mail over the weekend that announced our ADA survey. We've already had 55 respondents on there over the weekend, so we're excited about that, but I encourage everyone to go in. It's interesting, we're doing it a little bit differently this time and using our GIS program. So you can pin places throughout McMinnville on a map and identify where you see there are barriers for accessibility. You can take pictures and download them into the survey right away. And if you aren't comfortable with that, you can use an audio tape and just give a voicemail as to what the issue is. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible for people to participate, and I would encourage everyone to do so. This is a way for us to collect information about barriers in our community and in our public facilities right now. If you want to take the survey, you can go onto our website and just put in the search engine ADA, and it should pop right up for you. And your flyer has a QR code for those who want to use QR codes. We are knee-deep in the short session already, and there's already several housing omnibus bills. I was hoping the short session would give us a brief break, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It reminds me that we're years behind on updating our codes to reflect all the changes that have been made at the state with legislation. We did get a grant for $150,000 from the state to bring in legal advice to help us on how to make our codes compliant with state law based on all the changes, and also train staff. And we just finished negotiating that contract with the state for that grant, so we hope to bring that person in shortly so that we can start that work. It's important work. We have developers coming through the door giving us bills saying, this is what this bill says, how do I do this? And we're scrambling to respond. So I'm happy we got the grant. Not so happy about all the changes, but we'll get there.
Katie Henry, Finance Director.
Very little to report from finance aside from budget. As our city manager said, we are in round 1 budgets, which means all day, every day this week, we are in budget meetings with the departments, going through line by line and reviewing the budgets. We're also still in implementation with several different softwares. And with the Una software, which is our transparency one, you can see if you've gone online that it is stalled. It's still pending getting the daily integration. setup. So this has to do with security and what's behind a firewall and what's in front of a firewall and all of those good cyber things, and keeping our city's data safe while still making it transparent. So that's kind of where things are stuck right now, is just making sure we're safe with the data and yet can make it visible. So as soon as that gets through, you can expect to see some new graphics on the transparency portal. We're just waiting for that to be done.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the DEI Advisory Committee discussion. I'd like to call on Interim City Manager Adam Garvin to present the topic.
Thank you, Mayor. Claudia, can you promote me to share my screen? All right, so tonight is, we're back talking about committee reviews. We initially talked about this November 12th. You guys gave a bunch of various directions for various committees, whether that was their meeting schedule or their composition of their makeup. And so we've brought those forward to you in subsequent meetings through ordinances or resolutions as needed. And so the last committee that we have outstanding of needing direction on is the DEI Advisory Committee. And so this is what's before us tonight of what we need direction on. I will have these questions back up at the end of this presentation. Since your guys' November meeting, the DEI Advisory Committee had a meeting January 8th, and they kind of went through what they heard at the council meeting in November and what they had alignment with you guys on and what they had concerns on. So I wanted to bring that information forward to you guys for your consideration. I also sent out an email that had links that are ordinances that are currently posted on our website, just so you guys had all that data to fully review from the original one that was passed back in October of 2020, and then the two subsequent amendments, as well as the most recent work plan, which was a 2024 work plan. But the main goal this evening is to come away from this meeting with a direction so we can move forward with whatever that direction is. This is that slide from the November meeting, and nothing's changed there. This is a direct copy and paste from our November meeting. So January 8th, the DEI Advisory Committee met and discussed what you guys had talked about in your November 12th meeting. They went over current roles and wanted to provide input for some clarity for scope, expectations, and relevance if the committee remains. So there's a number of different bullet points in the code mentioned there. These two that I have on this slide are the ones that the committee currently feels are most important. The rest of them, they feel authority and expectations for them are unclear, and the committee seeks clearer alignment with council direction on the other bullet points that are currently in the code. So if you guys were to pursue keeping the committee, they would really like their efforts to be focused on these two bullet points, and that's why they're up on the slide. Plan framing, so there was some conversation around this in November of the DEI plan and renaming it an organizational assessment or an organizational transformation plan. I think some of that speaks to Councilor Chenoweth's concerns around the term DEI being captured in federal grants. And so that's where that comes from, as well as there's current language in there of identifying leaders, and the committee feels that it should be better phrased with this clarification language of identify existing BIPOC leaders and explore ways to strengthen and support these relationships. So they would like you guys to entertain that. I do feel that this committee should be an advisory body with an emphasis on public engagement and access improvements, and focus on relationship-based community connections. I want you guys to consider, what you want the DEI advisory committee to be, and make sure that it aligns with your council priorities. And so there's some synergy there of what's coming out of that committee, that it's supported when it gets to this dais, and whether that would need some code language to create that synergy, or if you guys can work within the existing code. That's where we're at this evening. So the goal is to come away from this meeting tonight with the direction of, what do you guys want the DEI committee to be? Do you want to change the composition of it? Do you want to internalize it? Do you want to keep it an advisory committee, what it is tonight? The floor is open for you guys, but we would like to come away from this meeting so they have a path forward for this year and can get to work on a work plan.
Got you. I will open the floor, and I'll do my best to read those things. Sorry, I'm struggling to read them. Anybody have anything they want to start with?
I can start.
Counselor Cunningham.
One of the things that in some of the discussions that I've been a part of is a real desire to have our documents better translated. The current packet, because of its form being a PDF, you can't just ask Google or whatever to just translate it. And so there is a struggle trying to understand everything that is in the packet as it is. Now, I don't know enough about the technology to say this is the fix for it, but it was definitely something where the comment was specific to the packet, as well as making sure that all of the permits and documents, applications, all are in multi-language, which I would think a good amount of that, some of that may already be done, but then a good amount of that could be worked on to make sure that we always have those up to date as possible. I think we just went through all the applications for the different committees, and I'm not sure if every single one of those was available in multiple languages. From there, the other request is to have what I would say community partner organizations, UNIDOS being one of those, to have a little bit more of a direct link into council. And I think the DEI committee, very much like the Affordable Housing Committee that has all the ex officio members, that the DEI committee might be a good place for that to take place. And so that we'll have a better communication with those organizations so that they can get, that information out to their groups. I think that's all I would have.
So let me just kind of clarify that. So the DEI committee is an advisory committee. So I would think that what you're asking would be something that they could look into, what it would take to have everything in a Spanish language, and a cost related, an idea on cost, and then that would need to be brought through to the council. And that's one, a work program suggestion. I just want to make sure that, because it's advice.
Yeah, and I think some of it would be culling through kind of the stuff where we could do better, so that they could just bring that to our attention.
So that's a suggestion for the work plan. Okay. Just want to make sure. Councilor Tukalski.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I would recommend that the DEI committee actually just remains the advisory committee, so that they do advise the council on what they think is the best course of action so that we can take action as we see necessary. One thing that I see different with the DEI committee than I see with other commissions or committees is that the DEI committee actually has a budget, where other commissions and committees do not have a budget, and I don't understand why. So if we're going to be equitable, it seems as though either all committees should have a budget or none.
That was something that City Manager Towery had given, from what I understood, given amount, but that was it. It wasn't like a sustainable budget, from what I was told. And in that, I believe there was money to do signage, and I'm not sure where we're at with that in regards to parks. I'm not sure who can answer that.
I do have Noelle online tonight that she can weigh in on some of this. But as far as a budget goes, there is some, there has been some money spent on some mailers. At one point, there was some isolated recruitments for DEI committee members, so there was some cost there. This last year, when we did the recruitment, everything was advertised together, so that's not an isolated cost anymore. There is money in the budget for some signage. I don't know if I'll speak to.
So I think we need to finish the signage that was allotted, the funds, and finish that project if we still have enough to do that, or at least do what we can with the money that was already there. And then and I think also out of those budgets, we've done the NeoGov, which is a requirement for HR. So those are just two things I'm going to put out there.
Okay, Councilor President Peralta.
Oh, yes, just to finish that point, I believe also the DEI committee had some money for events too, because part of the mission is to celebrate diversity, and I think some of the idea was to put on events with some of that money.
Noelle can speak to the specifics on that, but from what she shared with me in one-on-ones is there's been a little bit of money to support that, but by and large, the event support that the DEI committee's done has been through their personal volunteer hours and not through actual expenditures. And Noelle, if you wanted to speak to that.
Sure, thank you. I also wanted to clarify the statement made about the DEI committee having a budget. That is true in a sense, but only because the funds that were sort of allocated to that the DEI may use were funds that were part of the council's decisions when ARPA projects were being approved by the city council. So one of those ARPA projects was slated as DEI implementation. And so that kind of spanned through, between HR training and some of the software improvements that we've been able to provide for employees through NeoGov. Some of those funds were used for the organizational assessment. But by and large, there is a good chunk of that money that is still still there. It's still available. It's unspent, and has remained that way until we really have some council direction in terms of how we would like to use these funds to support DEI initiatives throughout the organization. So, they are one and done type funds. They're not something that is ongoing or allocated as part of a yearly budget. So I just wanted to make sure that piece was clear. Most of the other committees, all of the other committees, their costs for things like recruitment, or, putting it out in the newspaper when we're doing our annual, those things would come out of other materials and supplies, other line items. They're not specifically allocated. The DEI is unique in just that those costs come out of those ARPA funds versus a separate line item that would fall within community services, if that makes sense.
Councilor Chenoweth has a question.
So two, actually. The first one was, I'm still not clear. My memory was that the money that was in that ARPA money that we gave to DEI was specific to signage. Are you saying it's not?
When the ARPA funds were originally, that was actually when, that was before my time on the committee, but there was $250,000 or $225,000, that was given for
DEI implementation. And that was something that was supposed to follow under that organizational assessment. Once we did that, we would know then the best ways to spend that money. We also had an additional bucket of funds that we have been using for translation. We've done a good majority of the city's pertinent documents. So I know we did a big bulk of documents from the police department. We did that about a year or so ago. And we've done, a variety of documents through planning. When we do have live translation services, as we just did with one of the housing production meetings, those types of services would flow through those ARPA funds.
So signage is no longer something you're planning on doing?
Signage was something that was part of the DEI's work plan in the beginning of 2025, but because there was just lack of clarity and with the budget issues last year, Jeff Towery had asked me to press pause and not to do any further work on that project, so we really didn't even start it. We had a one conversation about that. We had put it in the budget with the intention of looking into that project, but it wasn't something that was ever really began.
My memory is the council was pretty clear we wanted that, and I'd sure like to see that done. The other thing that I wanted clarity on is there a difference in the way in which we recruit for the DEI? And maybe this is probably to you, interim city manager. Is there a difference in the way that we recruit for the DEI? Because what I heard in this back and forth was that this time all of the recruiting process was funded at the same time or through the same approach as the other committees. Was there a different way we used to do it that caused us to have to fund in a different direction?
May I answer that, or?
Go ahead, Noel.
Okay, sure. Yeah, this year we just had better coordination, really. Being able to better coordinate with planning and finance for the budget committee and the airport commission. We all just got it together. We did one recruitment for that, so they all fell within kind of one post versus I individually going out for recruitment for DEIC, planning department doing their recruitments versus airport commission handling their own, so on and so forth. So this year we really just coordinated that effort to save money.
So how did you do it last year?
Last year it was more of an individual effort. If you're referring to 2024, occasionally committees have out of season or out of cycle recruitment. So sometimes people move away or they need to step away from the committee for one reason or another. So sometimes we may have a recruitment that ends up happening in July. And in those instances, each committee would be responsible for whatever cost they incur for that. That does happen and has happened with the DEIC in the past. So those sort of one-off things would be, would be there, but that's not unlike any other committee who would have those same kind of circumstances.
I think I'm done with this questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
I'm not sure how much is in that budget that we have, that one-time budget of ARPA funds, but I guess I would like to kind of see, to be able to finish that plan that was there. And then is there enough to do the signs that we need to entering into our city as well, that there are, since we're on signage, and then to pay for some of the NeoGov, which is required for HR for the diversity,
Training modules.
yes.
So,
Councilor Tukalski?
I would ask if we're using what used to be ARPA funds, because I know that they have been transferred from one ARPA fund to a fund that we could actually use as a disbursement fund, then why is it if we need training via NeoGov, the DEI committee has to pay for it out of their budget when everyone else has the same need but doesn't?
It's not really their, it's a fund of money. It's not an ongoing budget. It's a fund of money. And that qualifies as to the diversity part.
I understand, but I still don't understand why they're the only committee out of 11 that has a budget of anything when everybody else operates within the city budget.
I'm see what you're saying, but I guess I'm saying that it's not an ongoing budget. It's
I get it.
money that was there
The
that you
implementation
could
fund.
reassign if you wanted to.
Well,
But that's where it was, I believe, how I take it, it was assigned there by the council previously.
in 2021, this council, or the advisory committee was created, and they were given X amount of funds. I think it's 225 is what Noel said. And they haven't spent that. It seems as though it's appropriate to bring it back and still allow them to spend as necessary, but do so out of the same funds that others do.
Mayor, permission to respond?
Okay? Finance Director.
I will be bringing, we have a work session planned for the ARPA funding, and all of these questions are part of that ARPA funding. I've requested from the city manager to please bring it back and give you a status on all of the projects so that we can have a comprehensive look at this, and you can decide whether you want to put this back into one lump sum, whether we want to extend the projects, how we want to deal with all of this. But the ARPA funds are currently one thing that we're tracking, and I have all the numbers for all of the questions that you all have, but we're planning a work session on this very soon. And so I would love for you to send Adam specific questions you might have, and I'd be happy to build some slides around that for that work session that's upcoming.
That's tentatively planned for March 18th, I believe.
I appreciate that, and that will be something that we look at, but I think we also can't wait. We need to provide some direction to the committee. Councilor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. So just some thoughts in terms of direction. I think the DIAC should continue as an advisory body. I'm not able to answer a lot of the questions that were being asked tonight because I haven't really had a chance to engage individually with the members of the DEI committee to get their perspective. I would like to say, Mayor, I've mentioned to the mayor previously, I'll volunteer to serve as the liaison to replace Councilor Payne while she's out, at least on an interim basis. And if I take that role, I'd be happy to try and get some of those questions answered with the committee and bring those back to council. But at this time, I wouldn't suggest changing the meeting frequency. I do think there's opportunities to improve communication between the committee and the council. I think there's opportunities to bring in, to do more in terms of engaging the other community members. As a counselor, at least I feel that way. So I just would like to get a better handle on what the committee itself is doing, and I'm happy to step in and do some of the lifting on that.
I appreciate that. I'm going to look at, we have some people that can't serve on the committees that they're on, so we're looking at, and with Councilor Payne leaving, looking at kind of all the committees, so we'll see who will end up there, but thank you. Did you have something? Councilor Gary?
Yeah, thank you. I think, start by saying I think we should keep the DEIAC as it is and continue their meeting frequency and also don't necessarily have answers for every key discussion item there. Just a couple of points. I think as that group has evolved, it's a good time to re-engage in part of what they have in their charges to, like a lot of councils used to do, and citywide we've gotten out of this habit of committees coming back and presenting sort of an annual report. Here's what we're working on, here's what we worked on, here's what went well, here's what didn't go well, here's questions we have, and they can engage in a direct way. I think doing that with this group would be helpful. I also think a couple of things. I think it's more incumbent upon us to effectively use that group to advise us. The other groups have longstanding, the advantage of a longstanding workflow that goes through those groups. The budget's created, we unite a budget committee, and it goes to them for review, and then it comes to us. The planning commission has every statutes that require that, but it goes through them and then comes up. There isn't a workflow path, and so not saying that every single other thing that isn't a planning commission or budget committee goes through that group, but I think it's more incumbent upon us as things start to be put down to that group with certain charges and then recommended to be brought back to us. Looking at a couple of the first items in their in their formation ordinance 5097, you know, A, advising the council on policy decisions related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and B, making recommendations to the council on public engagement strategies and methods by which McMinnville residents can better participate in the decision-making process. For example, the Parks and Recreation Open Space Master Plan used the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee as the public engagement committee for that. It was a built-in thing. Now, Park and Rec staff still went out into the community with iPads for a summer and a half, accosting everyone who came remotely close to a park to fill out the survey and get their input, and they went door to door. So it went above and beyond, but that group was the public engagement piece. I think as we do things like the ADA plan and work on big planning efforts, we should be, prior to starting those plans, using that group as public engagement methods to ensure that what we're doing is open, transparent, and touching everyone that project would openly touch. I think working through that group on those type of efforts would make those more successful, and building that in to this group's policy of starting those projects as opposed to hoping the staff at that time uses that group as that tool would be better suited to that group's feeling of efficacy, which is coming through in some of these questions. So I think my main thing would be keep them going and arrange to have that committee presentation in front of the council where we can work through a couple of those things.
And that an annual report is actually in one of the ordinances that was adopted?
Correct.
Are you talking more than the annual or just?
No, I'm talking the annual doing that.
Okay. Councilor Tukalski.
Yeah, I did just want to bring up that one of the DEI meetings that I attended, Councilor Payne at the time, had documentation that she was hanging on to that stated that the federal government was going to take away funding. She said she had proof that they were going to do so if the DEI of any kind remained inside of any kind of city council or city governments. Those are her words, not mine. And I'm still concerned that we're going to be a target of federal funding, just the same way that the state of Oregon and the city of Portland is the same way, right? We are currently a target. It's ridiculous to think that they're not going to look for these things within the state. So that does concern me. So put it on record, there you go.
Are you making a recommendation to change the name or?
Changing the name doesn't do anything.
Move the
All it does is hide, and that's dishonest. If you're going, yeah, so if you change the name, you can go ahead and call it whatever you want, but it doesn't change the purpose. So why would we do that?
Councilor Peralta.
I would just like to point out, we had commentary from the city attorney some time ago who had done some analysis that basically suggested that there's nothing that our DEI committee does that is out of line with the federal government requirements, those related to employment, not to what our DEI committee does. So I think the concerns about federal funding have been stated. I don't think they're based on good information, based on at least what we heard back from our attorney. So I understand the current administration has hostility towards multiculturalism, but I don't think that puts our city at risk, because literally nothing that our DEI committee does has been placed federally at risk by the administration.
If I may, I'm glad that you believe, Councilor Peralta, that the federal government will act rationally. So, well.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Thank you. I would be curious, because that was not my recollection of what the attorney said. Would you please enlighten me on what it was you said on this account?
I do not have the ability to recall that in completion. Did not prepare for that question for tonight. I think that what Councilor Peralta said was close to what I recall. And with the caveat that things are unknowable and that we have heard about
AI-driven keyword searches doing some of the legwork in these cases. Some future is unknowable, but yes, the specifics about letters from individual federal government departments called out hiring policies in particular. That's a little bit of a recollection off the cuff. I can't do more or give you a thorough opinion tonight.
So I will say that that's, I appreciate the back and forth and the commentary here. You all know my focus is the 2027 build grant. And that's been laser focused what I'm referring to and what I'm concerned about. And that nothing that I have heard has dissuaded me from that concern. So I will stand there and say that I would, again, recommend that we internalize the DEI. In the absence of that, going through the rest of these questions, is the current DEI Advisory Committee effectively fulfilling their intended purpose? Are there opportunities to improve communication between, no, I don't want that one, sorry. Is the meeting frequency appropriate for the workload? I think those are questions that really the DEI committee should be asking themselves and coming back with their own, as part of their workload, what they think, whether they need more meetings, less meetings, and the like. So I don't think that's questions I should be answering. In terms of bringing it to us once a year, I suppose that's okay. I kind of viewed the whole purpose of a liaison to these committees as being the reason, the whole role of the liaison is to bring to us what they're doing, talk to us and tell us what's going on, and from that, then you can dialogue with the liaison to bring it back to the committee. Maybe I misunderstood something, but I thought that was kind of the role. So it seems kind of duplicative, but I'm not strong feeling either way on that one.
I mean, I understand that because that's kind of what we do with the rest of the committees, is we do have a liaison that reports back every month. They're supposed to. We didn't get you very far, did we?
Is there any other comments before I look for some direction? So, from my read of the dais and some head nods, sounds like you guys would like to maintain the committee. And there was a proposal of bringing in some stakeholders or ex officio seats. Is there any appetite to do that? And if so, how many? You have the one that was proposed by Councilor Cunningham. You also have some other accessibility and inclusion partners in the city. MV Advancements is here, Essential Services is here. I don't need you guys to land on who those should be, but I think if you guys had some direction on how many of those seats you would like to have, if you're open to restructuring. If not, that's fine too, but that was a proposal and I didn't hear much direction one way or the other on that.
Let's hold on to that for right now, would be my recommendation, and let Sal and I at leadership talk about that more. We started a discussion on that, so I think if we can take it there. And
the last question, meeting frequency, Councilor Chenoweth proposed letting the committee themselves decide if they're meeting frequent enough. Is that?
I don't agree with that because it's a funding as well, because we have staff there. So I think that we need to be aware of that. That's one of the big things that we looked at with all the other committees. So I believe it's monthly, is that correct?
Correct.
And I think would be good. That's what most of the other ones are.
So keep it at monthly. Okay. Any other direction you guys would like to have other than going through the ARPA funding at that March 18th meeting that we're going to go through all the ARPA funding?
Are you good with that? Councilor Tukolsky talking about the
Yeah, that's fine. It needs to be a discussion, so thank you.
Okay. We'll have a discussion when they come up.
So the direction is keep the advisory committee how it is. Leadership will work through potential
restructuring and don't make any adjustments to the meeting frequency.
I do have, if I may.
Yes, Counselor Tukolsky.
So I'm just looking at the agenda for the next meeting for the DEI group, and it talks about advising the council, making recommendations to council, which is, if it's going to continue like that, I think that's fine. There's a bullet point that talks about advising the city on culturally responsive service, updating and overseeing progress on the city's plan. So it seems like there's some inconsistency in the plan where they're not necessarily reporting or they're not advising the city council. They're taking action on behalf of the city rather than acting as an advisory committee, just based off of the upcoming page 5 of their next agenda. So I'd ask that terminology would be clarified, that they are advising rather than executing those tasks.
And that was from their January 8th meeting. I mean, that was one of their requests, is for you guys to set the expectation and provide clarity on what you're looking for. If you, as a body, feel that it is strictly an advisory committee to the policy body, that's the direction they're looking for. If there's something else you want them to be doing, what is that direction?
I think it's labeled as an advisory committee, and I think that's what it should be.
And as far as them designing their 2026 work plan, those 2 bullets out of the 5 or 6, are you guys fine with them more focusing on those points that we had on that previous slide, or these 2 that are in the code, or do you guys have other things you want them to focus on?
So authority and expectations for those.
No,
There we go. They're making recommendations to the council. Yes. Sorry.
Do you need to borrow my?
I know. I can't see, and then there's this light that shines on it, so I can't see it there either. Advising, and then it comes to the council for decision. I'm good with that.
Okay. And then, just so we don't bring this back again, Noel, is there anything that I've missed here from that January 8th meeting that the committee would like further clarity on?
I think one of the things I think I had put in that staff report to you, Adam, was maybe some clarity around if an expectation or name change should be considered. I just want to make sure I heard correctly that a name change is not something that you're interested or looking for at this time.
Councilors?
No, I don't think so.
Scott, no? Does not look like consensus is there.
So no name change at this time, Noel. Thank you. Anything else before we move on to the next part of the meeting? All right, I appreciate you guys taking the time and weighing in, and I know the committee will appreciate having a path forward and being able to develop a work plan to bring back before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. Okay. Consent agenda. Staff has requested that the consent agenda items be pulled at this time, and they will be brought back in the future. So then we move to number 7, a resolution. Consider resolution number 2026-06, a resolution adopting a policy for media attendance at executive sessions. I'd like to call on City Attorney David Lightberg to present.
Thank you, Mayor. In the recent past, it has been considered and noticed that the city has never adopted a policy with regard to how media is understood
or how that representation comes to executive sessions. I was asked to look into that situation, and it turns out that quite a few other cities have adopted something in this space. In fact, the League of Cities has a model policy in this space, largely stemming from the fact that when the Public Meetings Law laid down executive sessions and laid down provisions for media attendance was back in the 70s, and things have changed since then significantly. In 2016, the Attorney General weighed in on those changes, brought a lot of clarity into specifically the digital space and what amounts to news media in a digital age. Following that clarity extended by the Attorney General, the League of Cities model policy was created. I drafted a policy based on the League of Cities model. It is included in your packet, and it is recommended for your adoption tonight. It functionally does three major things. The first one being provide as thorough as possible a definition of what news media means in this context for attendance of executive sessions. It's one of the changes that I made to the model policy is added some language specifically directly from the Attorney General guidance that would help the council and staff to determine what meets that criteria, because the next major piece of the policy is somebody seeking to attend executive sessions would represent that they are a part of the institutional news media, and it would be up to council to determine whether they meet that criteria. Again, based on staff review and recommendations, that's how it will come to you, likely in a, in fact, you're likely to see one of these next meeting. You will be presented with the qualifications of the news media representative, and the opportunity to review those qualifications, see whether they meet the policy, and then agree that that representative is authorized to attend the City of McMinnville's executive sessions based on the third part of the policy, a handful of exceptions that exist in the law, and we are just repeating. I'd like to point out specifically, and this is in your staff report, that I did modify the model policy in some ways. One of those is adding some of the language from the Attorney General guidance, hopefully for greater clarity and specificity on definitions. Second is a slight rewording of section 2B. That is a reference to the form that we are going to provide to potential representatives of the news media. While the model policy anticipates a form and makes it a requirement, I don't think the Attorney General documentation supports that. And if somebody were to come with sufficient background information and not fill out the form, we would still consider and accept them. The form is hopefully an easy mechanism for them and for us. The third major change is a change to section 2C that I would like to draw your attention to. The model policy requests advanced submission of the credentials, as I mentioned, but in this section, they indicated that if that didn't come in time for a deadline, the council would then either postpone their executive session or just allow the person in without review. I don't think that those two options are borne out by the Attorney General guidance, and I think that they come into the model policy as the most cautious approach here. If you would prefer to go that direction, we could reconsider the policy, rewrite it according to the model, and that would be the most cautious approach. What I put here is that the council would have to review this prior to somebody being allowed in an executive session, which would mean it needs to come and be able to be on the agenda in front of you at least
the evening before we go into an executive session where you could review and approve. I think that that is borne out by the Attorney General guidance. That is my legal opinion. But again, it is not the most cautious approach to this idea. Those are the only major changes that I made. I'm happy to entertain any other questions about this policy. Otherwise, staff recommendation is that you adopt.
Counselor Chenoweth.
So, talk to me about, well, one of the concerns I have in this process, and I've kind of already alluded this to Adam, so he may have already passed, or to interim president, interim, I just made you the president, interim city manager, is that I have concerns that if it's the city council that's making the final determination to allow somebody into the room, that we are creating a politicization of the media process, as opposed to having clear and objective standards and then leaving it to a staff member such as the city manager to be the one to make them, or you, the attorney with the city manager, to make the appropriate determination separate from the political process. After having said that, I got to thinking about it and thought, well, maybe there's a legal reason why it's being done this way. So my first question is there a legal reason why it's being done this way? And then my second comment is, if there's not, I think we as a body should really consider taking this out of our hands to be the final determiners and putting it in the hands of staff line people.
There is not a significant legal reason. That is absolutely an option in this space, and one that we briefly considered internally before presenting this to you. There's not a particular reason why we chose it this way, except that the model policy is closer to this. And just to try and assuage your fears, if this were not moved over to staff, if this stayed with the council, the way this would come to you would be with a staff report and a recommendation from staff who has reviewed based on the objective criteria in the first section of this policy. The objective criteria in the first section of this policy is designed for both the staff review in the report and for you from the dais to be able to make that determination objectively. I can understand not wanting to do that. Your concern is fair and reasonable and absolutely the right one in this space. And if the council was interested, we'd be happy to change that portion of the policy before implementation.
And to be clear, there's two reasons for that. I don't want to politicize it, but I also don't think it's fair to the journalists involved. It opens up the door for questions when it's policymakers that are making that final determination. And I would just, that's my recommendation.
Thank you.
Counselor Peralta.
Thank you, Mayor. Wouldn't it also extend the timeline for holding the executive sessions? It would mean it would take longer because the council has to meet to make a determination.
In my mind, the way this timeline works is considering that a representative of the news media has submitted prior to any deadline and ability to amend the packet, that would be reviewed and would get onto the consent agenda and could be the meeting on the same evening as an executive session. Now, that would require prior submittal, right, with enough time for staff to review, create a report, and get onto an amended agenda, right? It could not be as we got here in the evening, but you would be able to approve the consent agenda based on that. That media representative would be authorized to attend executive sessions, and the executive sessions, which we generally hold at the end of a council meeting, would be authorized for their attendance.
Yep, Counselor Peralta.
Thank you for that clarification. I think I am in agreement with Counselor Chenoweth. I think this is better handled by the staff rather than by the council in public meetings. So that would be my recommendation as well.
I agree with Counselor Chenoweth as well. Counselor Chenoweth.
This is kind of, I might be throwing a bomb out, but I apologize if I am.
By all means.
So recently this was done in the city of Newburgh. Similar process was gone through in which they put a media policy, for lack of a better way to describe it, in place. And the attorney that came seemed to imply that he didn't think any of these policies are going to stand muster if they end up in court. So what would be your answer to that?
I know that the model policy and my review of the policy follows the Attorney General's guidance. I think that that is the best interpretation of the law that we have right now, and the Attorney General went out of their way to point out that the underlying law is the controlling factor here, and everything that they say will not contradict the underlying law. I believe that this is legal and defensible and has been very clearly since, what year did I say? 2016.
Perfect, thank you. Defensible is what I'm looking for, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So we need to change.
That's right. So I don't need a motion. I will bring back a revised media policy that will end with staff review and acceptance of submittals, and that will be brought back for your adoption.
Thank you. We're going to move on to consider resolution number 2026-07, a resolution authorizing the Human Resources Director and City Attorney to enter into contract negotiations with Interim City Manager Adam Garvin. I'd like to call on Vicki Hedges, Human Resources Director.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a lot more to add than what's in the staff report. I'm bringing forward this resolution to allow the city attorney and I to enter into negotiations with interim city manager Adam Garvin for a ongoing contract.
Thank you. Councilors?
Sorry, Director Hedges and Council, may I just make one point very quickly?
Yes.
I just wanted to make a clarification that I failed to catch in my review of the staff report. The second alternative talks about limiting the city's ability to complete a recruitment prior to the end of the interim city manager appointment. The interim city manager appointment does not have an end date right now. It contemplates 9 to 12 months, but is not set to expire. Does contemplate going through this process. Just wanted to make sure that you were not misled by any portion of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cunningham.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge, and I think Zach did this a little bit earlier, that I have received some emails on both sides of support and wanting us to do a full search. And you know, I want to reiterate that everything that I've experience with Adam and everything that I've seen in regards to what Adam has done for this community up until this point, I feel very confident in. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Chenoweth?
And I just would repeat everything I said, go back and replay it, but I would add to it. I wanted to say this before and I didn't, and please don't take this the wrong way, interim manager, but the devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. And you know, I am happy with the performance that I've seen to this point. I've basically had what I would love to have with all of my employees, which is what are we at, 7 months at this point? 7-month interview. So, and what I've seen, I'm good with.
Councilor Peralta? Councilor Tukolsky?
I was one of the biggest opponents of Adam during the hiring process, so I'll just throw that on record. I've had emails both for and against his appointment, or his potential hire, probably equal 50-50. I will say that what I've experienced over the last 7 months have been very positive. I know a lot of people wouldn't be excited with my opinion either way, and so I'll just give you my experience based on, I'll give you my opinion based on my experience, because that's what I have right now. And yes, we could go outside, we could go ahead and spend money to Do a full recruitment. What I've seen is a fiscally conservative person that's making good choices for the city, bringing order to the city. There's accountability that's been brought to the city that didn't exist before. And there is a little bit of discomfort with that because people sometimes have a challenge with change, and Adam's brought a lot of change, but every part of it that I've seen so far has been professionally done. Everything's been above the table with him, with my one-on-one conversations with him, and everything that he says should or should not happen, or he will or will not do, does come to fruition. So I have learned to trust Adam as well. And I will be the first person to say that during the hiring process, I was wrong about him. And so I wanted to put that out there. So I've been pleasantly surprised, so I would support that. So thanks for the time.
Counselor Gary?
Yeah, thank you. When we talked about this last time, I voiced my support more for an open, broad search. So I'm still in line with that. I will be opposing this tonight, not in a condemnation of your performance, but in preference for the process being open and a broad search where the best candidate applies and the best candidate is awarded and negotiated the job. I also would just point out, I think an open, broad, public process that would have council intention setting, potential opportunities for public process and engagement as that new city manager is onboarded actually would be the more open, transparent, publicly accountable process. A direct negotiation would go against a lot of that and be more done in executive sessions or behind closed doors. And so I think this process is antithetical to an open and transparent process. Again, this is not a condemnation of interim city manager Garvin's performance to date, but I think moving forward, we should be opening this up to a larger, more broad search.
I move to adopt the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Claudia?
Counselor Geary,
Nay.
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Aye.
Council President Peralta.
Yes.
Resolution number 2026-07 passes by a vote of 4-1.
Okay. Find my sheet. Now we're going to move on to resolution number 2026-09, a resolution authorizing the city of McMinnville to participate as a co-sponsor in a countywide business survey. I'd like to call on Adam Garvin, interim city manager, to present, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll give Claudia a minute to pull up the edited question number 10. I wanted to make sure that was publicly available for the community. The survey here that's being pulled up had a slight edit and wordsmithing to question number 10 to add some further depth to it after some feedback from the mayor. John and Miriam agreed to make that edit. I would also like to call out that there's been some additional co-signers on this since the staff report was written. That's in your packet. And that's the Chehalis Valley Chamber, the MDA, and SEDCOR have signed on since the packet went out. So wanted to call that out. This survey is part of the immigration policy considerations that we discussed a couple meetings ago. And so the action item before you tonight is, do you want to sign on as a co-sponsor? And what that means is called out in the staff report. And I'd entertain any questions or clarification that's requested.
Well, I'll go first because I'm the one that added number 10. So to me, if the city's going to sign on to a survey, this, especially to all of our businesses, we need to ask more questions than just about immigration, which immigration is important and we need to know that, but let's take that opportunity to also ask what other issues are our businesses affected by. So is there city policies, state policies, other federal policies? What are those so that we can come back and learn? We have a lot of businesses that are in an economic concern right now, as just the state as a whole. So I added number 10. I appreciate that. I talked with John Olson and I also talked with Miriam in regards to that. So I hope that I will sign on to that. I also have to be honest that I talked to Miriam and John both about hoping it's not a means to an end. So we do this information, we find out how as a community we can help all of our businesses, but just concerned that the city itself doesn't have a lot of money. We're in budget crises all the time, and that just making sure that how that comes back, that we kind of look at the community as a whole and how we can work to look at these items. So that's where I was at. Anybody else? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate Miriam and Unidos making the changes to the survey that the mayor had requested, and I'm grateful to see all of the partners that have signed on already. So I'm definitely in favor of this. I'll wait for more conversation before making a motion, however.
Councilor Tukolsky.
Yeah, so first of all, number 9 has a pretty significant spelling error, so that should be changed. I'll just take note on that. If it does go through, why haven't other cities actually signed on to this? We're talking about Chehalis Valley Chamber of Commerce. I mean, that includes a pretty big area. Why are we the only ones being asked, you know?
I don't have context as far as what other cities have been approached to sign on to this as a co-sponsor. There was an email chain that went out to a number of different organizations, but I don't know who exactly has been engaged or not. I know John is in the crowd if you guys wanted to ask him to speak to that on the spot, but
John Olson, would you mind coming up?
Is that okay?
Yeah. John Olson, Executive Director, CEO, President, whatever you want to be called, of the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce.
I mean, if I get to pick, I could pick a new title, but President CEO is what the board lets me call myself.
I guess the question is, who signed on, and really, how broad is this survey going? Is it city or county? Or
Yeah, so
Hey, can I just ask a point of order real quickly? I'm sorry to interrupt. I apologize. I just want to make sure, is this considered public comment? Or is this considered just inquiry is this legal right now? I just want to keep us space.
It strikes me that this is within the context of the issue being discussed right here.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want to get out of order and get us in a pickle. Thank you.
Absolutely. So the basis of this survey was always the intention was to be countywide. Our original intention was to come together with other economic development organizations to pose this survey for businesses, all businesses across the county. In doing so, we wanted to build a coalition, and it was felt by the committee that put together this survey that it was important because of the questions that were coming before this council that what we heard often was we would like to know the truth. And so from that, we heard that the city would want to participate in knowing what these responses were because we have no conceived outcome. We want good data to be able to then have a conversation with the city, with our economic development partners, and with other support agencies throughout the county to be able to say, here's good data, now what? And so that's why we engaged with the city to say, would you like to be a sponsor of this? One, because we want you in the conversation of what comes after this, but also because we also know that you saying that you endorse this information would encourage some businesses to participate that maybe that wouldn't, just based on the chamber or Unidos or the Chehalis Valley Chamber.
So the survey will come back, but it won't define the answers to a city.
No.
It will just be
absolutely
a
not.
group answer.
Yep, it'll just be raw data that we'll sit down together and go over. And then there's no preconceived action after this. This is just information gathering.
Any other questions for Mr. Olson?
Just a comment. You're a better not to direct to another counselor, but you're a better proofreader than I. I can't find a spelling problem, but I do see a grammatical problem in the way that the question is phrased. So you might want to relook at number 9 and look at the grammar in that.
I'm happy to do that. And just so you know, this is not just a survey that was conceived out of our own minds. We actually enlisted a former sociology professor from Linfield to be able to put these questions together because we want good scientific data to be able to come back to you and say, this is what we learned from the business community.
And in terms of my opinion, I'm pretty much right in line with you, Mayor, so I have no added comments.
Councilor Peralta?
I'd like to move the resolution.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just-
Read it out at all?
What was that? I didn't.
You want the resolution read out loud at all, or just proposing it is okay for you? Sometimes you want it read out.
Are you asking me? We don't need to read resolutions.
I didn't know if you said the number.
I did not.
Yeah. Okay, just wondered if you needed the resolution number in his motion.
You are moving the resolution that's on the table.
Okay, just want to make sure you had enough. Councilor Tukolsky, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, my question was, why did we wait until now to conduct a survey to see how our businesses are doing? Shouldn't
We conduct surveys, roundtables all the time, listening sessions all the time.
Yeah, so
The
why
thing
did
that brought
this
this
one come to
survey,
us?
sorry?
Why did this one come to us for approval?
I think this one came to the approval, like I've already said, that there has been a community discussion going on around impacts to immigration enforcement policy. We took the feedback from this council and meetings with other stakeholders that says we should do a broader listening session of impacts on businesses, so that's how this was constructed. But the thing that brought us to this moment was what we had heard from businesses, members of the chamber, businesses supported by Unidos. There had been some impacts by immigration enforcement. That's what brought us to this moment. Now we're taking the opportunity to have a broader survey and pulse check on businesses while we also have those questions.
Okay.
And there'll be a great forum on the 12th that will also be dealing with the business, getting a pulse of business.
Absolutely. Yep, a really important one.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I had one more question. It seems as though this isn't going to cost us anything. It's
That is
basically a
correct.
show of support. And it's not going to take any staff time?
The only staff time that would be committed to this would be in looking at the results afterwards.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
to that point, Dan, sponsorship reflects an institutional partnership and leadership and includes allowing the city's name and logo to appear on the survey.
Oh,
Okay.
I did read that part.
So yeah, the staff time is really the review of the results and sharing through our social media channels and our other communication channels that this is a survey and we would like businesses to engage in it. Outside of that, there's no direct cost.
Thank you.
You are dismissed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Claudia, we have a motion on the floor.
Counselor Geary,
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
Yes.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Aye.
Council President Peralta.
Yes.
Resolution number 2026-09 passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we have an ordinance. Consider the second reading of ordinance 5170. I'd like to call on Heather Richards, Community Development Director, to present any additional information that is required.
Yeah, so Mayor, I don't have additional information. This is just a reminder that you are adopting an ordinance that's making some comp plan amendments. This is relative to Work Task 2 for our sequential UGB work program. You are adopting some amendments that are creating land use efficiency measures to meet our housing need and our industrial land need for the planning period 2021 to 2041, but not meeting our commercial land need for that period and not electing to move forward with the UGB amendment.
Thank you. As the city council members might recall, the ordinance did not have a unanimous support at the January 27th meeting, requiring the second reading to be conducted at a special meeting. Unless any member requests otherwise, I will ask City Attorney David Lightmer to read the ordinance by title only. Any requests? Okay, City Attorney David Lightmer, please, can you read by title only?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of Ordinance Number 5170, an ordinance adopting amendments to the November 2023 Housing Needs Analysis, the September 2024 Economic Opportunities Analysis, and the December 2025 Framework Plan, and declaring an emergency. Now, I would like to point out to you, as you may have noticed, this differs from its terms as it was originally filed. Specifically, what I just read was the declaration of an emergency. Now I'm going to read to you each section that incorporates a difference fully and distinctly in this open council meeting before your final approval. The final recital. Whereas these amendments requiring submittal to the Department of Land Conservation and Development by March 1st, 2026, they must be adopted prior to that deadline. This ordinance, as considered on February 10, 2026, for second reading and vote, incorporates an emergency clause, also reflected in the title, and shall be effective on passage. The final change is number 5, under the working language of the ordinance, where it states, an emergency is hereby declared to exist, and this ordinance will take effect immediately upon passage by the City Council. Those are the sum of the changes.
Discussion, I guess, could you just tell the citizens why it's an emergency now?
That was the whereas that I read. We've got a deadline for submittal to the DLCD by March 1st.
March 1st. Okay. Want to make sure that's clear. Thank you. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Councilor Tukolsky.
Thank you. So declaring a state of emergency, in this case, what's it going to do for us?
Sorry, I did not hear well the last bit of what you said.
What will the state of emergency accomplish for the city? Does it allow further resources, further staffing to get it
No.
in on time?
In this context, a state of emergency as applied to the passage of an ordinance suspends the normal requirement for an ordinance not to go into effect before 30 days. In this case, it will go into effect immediately because you have determined that the emergency exists.
Just want to be clear, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. So do I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 5170?
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion from Councilor Cunningham. I have a second from Councilor Peralta. Any further discussion? Claudia?
Counselor Geary,
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham,
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky,
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth,
Nay.
Council President Peralta.
Yes.
Ordinance 5170 is adopted by a vote of 4-1.
Okay. I think that is it for tonight, and we will adjourn at 9:17 p.m.